I'm not going to be looking at giant size X-Men. I could. I'm not going to. Where did that come from? Boom, boom, boom. Do I have a window open that I don't know about? Yes, I do. Well, shit. Oops. There we go. That's the comic book that I haven't read in a long time. I just read Giant Size X-Men a couple of months ago. Again, for the millionth time. I better double check my mixer settings here. They like to revert back. I think I'm good. Yeah, let me check my mic setup here. All right, Avengers 158. I'm gonna try to make it. I think that's as big as I can get it. I guess I can try. First, you have to unlock it. If I do that, it's going to crop it out. A little bit cropped out won't hurt. Avengers 158 from 1976. Oh man, what a cool issue. This isn't George Perez or John Byrne. This is Sal Buscema. This is Sal Buscema writing this good stuff. Jack Kirby cover. This is when Jack Kirby returned to Marvel. Jack Kirby returned to Marvel. He had it on the outs with Stan Lee, and left Marvel in the late 60s. Yeah, and went to DC, did OMAC, One Man Army Corps, and Commandy. Those books didn't really go over very well, but that's when he went and created, late 60s, he went and created that New Gods stuff. But then he returned to Marvel and he did a shit ton of covers. He also had a small run on Captain America in 1976. So comics and then killing some bugs later. Yeah, I'll probably kill some bugs later. I'm also going to play Marvel Midnight Suns. I cannot beat the last mission on Marvel's Midnight Suns. I have tried and tried and tried. They handcuff you back because they don't let you use your hunter character. Sorry, my leg's itching. I still have some of that junk on my leg. I'm still not totally healed up. I've still got some of that oil fungus stuff that's on my leg. It's driving me nuts. It's not near as bad, but yeah, I was going to kill some bugs later if you wanted to play. I don't know what your schedule looked like, but I was watching a Braves game and they're fucking getting destroyed by the Mariners. They won last night, so I just couldn't get into the game. The Braves bats are they scored 2 runs in the first inning and they, maybe it will give you superpower. Oh, I wish. Fungus man. Yeah. But yeah, I just kind of in the mood to read some comic books. And whenever I read, not whenever, normally I lay in bed on my iPad and read my digital comics. But on my Marvel Unlimited subscription that I have. But sometimes I like to get on here and sometimes I like to just get on here and read comics. And when I do, on my desktop, sometimes I fire up YouTube. Yeah, if somebody watches, yeah, whatever. Somebody, maybe I'll get 10, 20 people to watch it later, I ain't worried about it. But yeah, I remember getting this as a kid. I had been buying Avengers Monthly, and this cover, Jack Kirby cover. When I was growing up, though, Jack Kirby was not seen as cool. He was already seen as dated, or he wasn't like a big deal. He was still a big deal to like the older hardcore fans, but the younger comic book readers. I mean, I think everybody appreciated Jack Kirby, but it wasn't like we wanted to see like George Perez and Walt Simonson, John Byrne, Frank Miller, those guys that were just coming up. This is before Frank Miller. He wasn't drawing comic books in 1976. But yeah, this is Wonder Man. It had to happen. Wonder Man versus the Vision, because the Vision was a jealous bastard thinking that Wonder Man was making a move on old Scarlet Witch over there. But you can always tell a Jack Kirby. I mean, this is Jack Kirby. The Scarlet Witch's face right here is Jack Kirby. I don't know why my cursor's not showing up. Let me look at something here. Capture cursor, it said. Maybe it is. I don't know. See, I don't like the big zoomed in panels. There we go. The Mighty Avengers when Avengers clash. I can actually make those pages a little... the interior I can make a little bigger. I can expand that out a little bit. Vision, get your own bitch. Well, this is where you can see Jim Shooter, who became the editor-in-chief at Marvel. Shortly, the following, I think he started being editor-in-chief in like 1978. But he was, he had started writing Avengers. He had been writing Avengers for about a year here. It was Jerry Conway before him, but the earlier they had fought a stoned. They fought the Black Knight character who had been turned to living stone, and then cursed, and then he came to the Avengers Mansion and just thrashed the Avengers. But the Vision is the one that ended up beating him. I didn't cover that. Don Heck drew that. Not a huge Don Heck art fan. I mean, it was one of his better issues, but you can see Pablo Marcus here. Pablo Marcus is like the dream team with George Perez, but Sal Buscema. These Sal Buscema issues with Pablo Marcus as the embellisher is really, they're good. But see, as you can see, he's like, Wonder Man is so dizzy, please hold me, I've got you. And Vision's like, what the? And this is where Vision is still struggling with his himself, because his brain patterns were taken from Simon Williams' dead body. So they share like brain synapses. It's kind of weird. But Vision's like a voice that cannot intone the concern, the warmth, the love they just expressed by usurper. The ghost can feel rage. So yeah, he's got some human like jealousy tendencies here. Like, get your hands off of her, human. You've pushed me too far. And he's like, what the heck are you doing? He goes, look here, friend. The lady is charming, but I am not your friend. This is typical. And she's like, oh, shit. Vision just smocks. You get your damn hand. Yeah, I mean, the Vision, that's an iconic Sal Buscema punch. There's even a Twitter handle called Sal Buscema Punch. Sal Buscema does this kind of punch scene a lot. I loved it as a kid. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I mean, to me, that's cool. It's not really realistic looking or anything, but it's to me, I was like, oh no, that's comic book action. Yeah, and then he beams him. The Vision does not have a Infinity Stone. Hey, you, Biff, get your damn hand. I watched all three of those the other night, man. Yeah, he went full. Oh, that's awesome. Full Will Smith. He did. He come up, he bitch slapped Wonder Man like Chris Rock. Then he hits him with a solar beam. The Vision does not have an infinity gem in his forehead. That is a solar beam. That's a solar gem that collects radiation from the sun. So he can recharge in the sun like Superman, whatever. But then he also shoots them out of his eyes too. I think they get confused because I think the writers got it different as they went on, because later on they made him with eye beams. the Vision shoots his beams out of his eyes, and some of the writers make the Vision, or maybe it's the artist that does it. Maybe they didn't go over the details. Yeah, that's what he does. It collects solar power. He's like, still moving. He's thinking, odd that some say I am less than human, when in truth I am far superior to flesh and blood. And now Wonder Man's pissed off. I'm like, okay. Wonder Man gets up, and then I love this. He like fucking just hits him there, and then he goes through him. But this panel, as a kid, when I was a kid, I thought this panel was really cool because you can see the ground buckling underneath. You can see the floor buckling underneath Vision's density because he's increased his density. Wonder Man's like, yeah, I know, your heart is diamonds, proportionally strong. But he hits the ground, and then he's, bam. That's another Sal Buscema punch scene. And Iron Man is underneath this because he got thrashed by the stoned version of the Black Knight last. Damn, that's like Greta Thunberg would love the Vision. Recharged by the sun, no carbon waste. I still can't believe people are fucking. I can't believe she's still on the circuit going around talking about this shit. I mean, she's not a teenager anymore. I mean, it's over. All right. You had your 15 minutes of fame, you little Swedish girl with autism or whatever it is. Go away now. Oh, my God. Well, it's just one fucking lie after another. Anyway, Iron Man got thrashed by that Black Knight, so he's like, what the hell's going on? He still thinks it's the Black Knight, like, invading the mansion here. He's like our invited guest. I've read this comic book. I probably read this comic book at least 100 times when I was a kid. This was awesome. I had a couple friends that didn't even like comic books that loved this issue. They were like, oh, they love this fight. So they're sitting there going toe-to-toe, Vision and Wonder Man. And then he puts his hand, he tries to disrupt him by going intangible and then trying to harden his density inside Wonder Man's body. That really wouldn't work though, because Wonder Man is pure energy. His body is just like a shell of energy. And whenever Vision's done that in the past to beings that are energy, it always backfires on him. It always, like, he gets the feedback and like it hurts him. He did it with Count Nefaria, and he couldn't even penetrate Count Nefaria. I was showing that. Yeah. Yeah, we're 5 issues from the Count Nefaria. Yeah, he's like, yes, I can hurt you. Get your hand out of me. Because Wonder Man said earlier, you can't hurt me on the previous panel. He goes, you can't hurt me. I'm at least as invulnerable as you, and you can't hurt me. It's like, yes, I can hurt you. But I love it. He just smashes him. And now you can see Vision starting to, Wonder Man is starting to get the upper hand. But he's like, Iron Man, somebody stop them before they kill each other. I mean, what? Scarlet Witch couldn't stop it? She couldn't do it. And then Iron Man's like, let them fight it out. Let them get it out of their system. Your solar batteries must be running low, Android. You're getting weaker. I'm just getting warmed up. I love Wonder Man. They're gonna fucking end up ruining him. Yeah, and now he's got the eye beams. He did the solar blast, and now he's got the solar blast out of his eyes. And he's like, right in his face. High intensity heat blast. And then Wonder Man's like covering his face up, and the Vision's like power nearly drained, and then Wonder Man's like, bam. So they're both kind of hurt. So I say Wonder Man, it's kind of a draw, but Wonder Man basically would, if that fight goes on another like 90 seconds, Wonder Man would smash him. And then Iron Man is like, okay, that's enough. Iron Man saw the superhero UFC potential. But yeah, there's the Black Knight. I love this panel. It's awesome. There's a lot of George Perez inspiration in this panel. George Perez would always like have that kind of view, but he'd put a lot more like debris and destruction in the scene. But I like they still have the Black Knight. Man, they don't make comic books like this anymore, man. I say that all the time. So they end up getting a call, and this is the introduction. This is the first appearance of a really cool villain they haven't utilized enough. They did on the Earth's Mightiest Heroes animated Graviton. This is the first time ever anybody's seen Graviton. And he lifts up this, I guess they're in Colorado or something. He lifts up this little city, it's not a city, this little like base or whatever they're on. Because it goes through his origin here. But yeah, this is Graviton. And then Graviton is in, he's got the hots for this blonde chick here. But this brunette chick wants to be his woman. So there's a little cat fighting going on here. That's kind of a clumsy way, but here it is. Here's his origin, where he's working on a teleport beam. The matrices won't align. He doubles the power, and then the experiment goes bad, and he gets hit with some kind of energy here, and it bombarded by anti-gravity element. Instead of teleporting me, the beam scrambled my molecules, and he became able to control gravity to I like how it has him criticize my work, will you? And he drops a wrench on his head, and then here he is. Now and forevermore, I am Graviton. And he's trying to convince this woman to love him. I guess he's taken over this unit, that little scientific complex, and that's what he lifted up with his gravity ability. And he's super powerful. Like he can just do that. He's kind of like Magneto, but with gravity. That's the best way to explain him. But he can actually do more. He's more powerful than Magneto, actually. But he is untested, He hasn't fought anybody yet. But she sees something coming. In the next panel, it shows the Avengers coming in. This next panel is awesome. Right here. You see Vision coming in. Graviton does not know the Avengers have shown up because they got a distress call about what was going on with that thing. Let's go, Avengers attack. You will do nothing, human. Your reign of terror here has ended. Yeah, we'll see. You think you're safe in your wraith-like form, but even your lowest density, it has some mass, and anything that has any mass can be affected by my crushing power of intensified gravity. So Magneto, but better. Just saying gravity affects everyone in mass, not just me. Yeah, I mean, basically he controls, like in the animated series when he fights, they do a different kind of version of the character a little bit. They make him tied in with like S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. puts him in a isolation unit for like a decade or 7 years or something. But that's why he grew that big beard. But he can basically control reality. Yeah, and they all come running at him. He just blasts them. He just blasts them out the hole in the ceiling or the wall or whatever. Anti-grav repulsion, pure energy blowing us away. Yeah, he just thrashes the Avengers. Easy. You cannot deal with all the Avengers so effortlessly, villain. Away from me, woman. I love this shit. Then he just lifts the Vision up. Captain America is about ready to throw a shield. He makes Captain America's shield weigh tons. Even Wonder Man can't lift it off of him right now, and it's crushing Captain America. Can't breathe. That's awesome. I love that panel. Wonder Man trying to pry Captain America's shield off of him. He's beating the Avengers. Nothing can stop him. And then she smacks him here on this other bitch, grabs their cat fighting and hits her on the back with a lamp or whatever the fuck that is. So you got Scarlet Witch and Iron Man trying, and he raises up the floor to block their beams. And then he makes it into like a big boulder. Bam. Got to shield Wanda with my armored body, take the brunt. But it ends up smacking Scarlet Witch a little bit. This part's kind of dumb. Yellow Jacket and Wasp attack him here at close range like they do, and he throws a pencil at him and spins a pencil and smacks him. All I have to do is increase the weight of the pencil to a ton or so and spin it through the air. I mean, they're trying to be clever there. Just why not just blast them away, you know? Wonder Man, it's up to us. Yeah, well. And he brings the roof down on him. Kind of a over-the-top evil scowl here from Salvi Sim. Nothing can stop me, Graviton. Can and will rule the world. Siege by stealth and storm. Next issue. And I will rule beside you, Graviton, now that traitorous witch is finished. She's not talking about Scarlet Witch. She's talking about the blonde here, Judy or whatever. That kind of ends up being his undo. Imagine that, the villain undone by a woman. Siege by stealth and storm. Stealth is Black Panther and storm is Thor. Beautiful. I love reading these things from 1976. She don't want no side piece. She wants to be the bottom bitch. Beautiful is the word to describe George Perez's art and Pablo Marquez's ink. They're not talking about this. This is the thing. I would always go to this page first when I got my comic books. Once I got into comic books, like after a year or two, I'd always turn to this because this is like 3 issues in the past that they're talking about. You know, there was no email or anything like that. So I love the old days. We always hoped to be... I remember saying, because some of them would bash the artist. Like, I remember there was a run of Frank Robbins on Captain America where not everyone, but there was a couple of people that would write in, would go, get rid of him, he sucks, and all this. I kind of, and they, every once in a while, they'd print that. And I was like, Please keep Wonder Man in the Avengers lineup. With Thor gone, the Avengers need a hero with immense power to replace him. And sometimes sometimes the names that wrote in, like years down the road, they become comic book writers. Like you would, like decades down the road, you'd say, "Oh wait, he used to write into the thing." I don't know. I just paid attention to this shit, but I'd always turn to this first. So I get like an insight of what's going on. And sometimes they drop little hints of stuff that would be going on with, like, couldn't you just slide into their DM? Yeah, why didn't they just slide into DMs? I hate that term. Oh, just slide into DMs. Somebody put something cringes. Got some clown on Twitter right now trying to tell me that Chink's nephew has demonstrated growth by changing his diet. I saw them talking about that guy, about Jink's nephew, the guy from the Young Turks. That guy's a fucking idiot. I don't watch that dude. His nephew. All right. Moving on, Graviton, Earth. Now we're in 1977 on the cover here. So that was late 76. It was probably, I think that last issue was actually like January of 77 was like the actual release date of it, though. Nothing about the Young Turds. Yeah, I fucking hate the Young Turds. I mean, that Anna chick's kind of hot. I mean, she's kind of like AOC skank hot, you know? But, you know, she's not bad on the eyes, but, you know, she's nuttier than a fucking... nuttier than a box of squirrels or whatever. I don't know what the saying is. Dude, I love this cover. I don't know who drew this. I do not. I'm looking for the signature and I do not see it. Who drew this? I don't recognize that. What power is this that challenges the might of Thor? The power of gravity gone wild, Avenger. The power of graviton, Lord of the fundamental force. Then you can see Black Panther hanging on for dear life right there. This is the version of Black Panther I like. I remember when I finally got this issue because I missed this issue off the spinner rack when I was a kid. I got the last one and then I was like, because I got it late because it was like a leftover, and it took me like 2 months to find this book. I was wondering about Graviton versus Thor and Mjolnir. It's magic, and now he's on the cover. Oh yeah, stealth. Siege by stealth and storm means that Black Panther and Thor are coming to save the day. They had an epic battle on the Avengers animated show, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, against Thor and Graviton. That was awesome. Thor and all his Shakespearean bravado. Jim Shooter, Sal Buscema. It's the same cast of characters here. Archie Goodwin's the editor of the book. Or he's actually the editor at Marvel at the time. Archie Goodwin, the guy that created Luke Cage and all that good stuff. He was in on the creation. See, sometimes you got to be careful about that co-creator stuff because Marvel had just because the guy was writing the book. There's a big thing about Rob Liefeld and Louise Simonson about the co-creation of Cable and Deadpool, because she was the writer on the book of X-Force when Liefeld made those characters. But and the editor was Bob Harris. The editor on the book was Bob Harris. But Liefeld 100% created all those characters, and people like to jab on him going, oh, that you were the co-creator of Deadpool and Cable and Domino. No, he was the 100% fucking creator of that stuff. Get the fuck out of here. Because they wanted to change the name of Cable. Bob Harris, the editor, had said, we were trying to change the name. All Bob Harris said was, we want to get a new mentor for the mutants. That's all. And Liefeld said, so they charged Liefeld with creating Cable, like the new mentor, of young mutants. And that's why he created it. The others had nothing to do with naming them, designing them, or anything. So, yeah, all that's a bunch of horse shit. So anybody that talks about co-create... Stan Lee did not create Doctor Strange. Steve Ditko created Doctor Strange, but he named him Mr. Strange. Stan Lee named the character. But all of that was created by fucking Steve Ditko. The same with Spider-Man. He was in on the idea, which is part co-creator, but there is no Spider-Man without fucking Steve Ditko. And it's the same with Jack Kirby. Stan Lee got way more credit on shit than he deserved. Anyway, in the story. Yeah, he's teleporting. He's levitating all the Avengers up. It's cool what he does with them. You see how easily I beat them? He's all happy. I am Graviton, da-da-da. Judy, what happened? Smack. You pig. I love it. He smacks her because she was betraying you. She knew the Avengers were about ready to... she's the one that called the Avengers. She's the one that let it out that we were in distress. Because you're a gold digger, Raquel. Yeah, this is hilarious. But Graviton, sir, I am loyal to you. I love Jim Shooter. Yeah. This is back when this is back in the good shit, man. Jim Shooter didn't give a fuck. Because you're a gold digger, Raquel. Is that Rachel or Raquel? That's Raquel. You always snub me when I was just Frank Hall. But now you think I'm your ticket to wealth and power. Cue Kanye West here. No, I want to help you, honest. And then they're firing the people that in the complex, the scientific complex of all. The militia has gotten their guns. A weakling like you never cut him down. He can also intensify gravity around his body to be like a force field. Yeah, he's got a lot of bag of tricks here. He's got a lot in his, and all this while he's levitating the entire the entire city half a mile above the earth. I don't know if it's an entire city, but it's, you can see the crater there. He's right. None of us would survive the fall. So he's like, you fools, if you kill me, you would all die because we would plummet. Everyone would plummet through their deaths, you morons. Yeah, he's a powerful dude, but we're about ready to... oh, my God, no. And then he flings her up. Shut up, you heard her. She's mine now. And she has to submit to him. She's on her knees. Frank, sir, please don't kill them. I beg you. I'll do anything. That's a good start. You're down on your knees. Please don't kill my Joe. Don't trouble yourself, my dear. They will drift to earth as gently as thistledown. Now to take care of the Avengers. So he throws them. He shoots him over the side of the cliff. This is good shit, man. And then away they go as they levitate down. She's like, no, my ticket to wealth and power. You gold digger. So now this little thing shows up above Manhattan. Always got to be back in the Air Force come in, and they can't get to it. Daredevil's like, what the hell? There's no way I can reach that sky island. Spider-Man must feel just as helpless. I love all the every once in a while they would tune away to another character. Like the universe felt a lot more connected than like DC did. Doctor Strange. That's Jarvis. Now we're back. That's Doctor Strange. Temporary home of the Defenders is quiet and empty. So the Defenders aren't around to help. The Baxter building is deserted, but Avengers Mansion, Jarvis is like, I'm blind, man. I hit things with a stick. Yeah, you can't do much. Can't do much against a floating city half a mile in the sky. The Black Panther. How on earth did you get in here without... I apologize for my appearance, sir. He's like, first, Jarvis, I want to hear all you know about Graviton. Nobody knows anything. And then Thor shows up. Perhaps thou dost require an ally. Thou dost require an ally, my friend. Thor. So away they go. This is cool. Look, he's put like a crown on her and like a necklace and everything. Oh, you gotta love comic books. And I love how he's got him pinned up against this. And why doesn't he just fling Captain America's shield somewhere? I know. Then Cap wouldn't be able to use the shield later. Not that Captain America can do anything against Graviton. Can't move a muscle, but we'd be dead if Graviton's girl hadn't pleaded for our lives. See, the pussy always is the undoing of the villain. Just kill the Avengers. The same old story. Why you look so worried, Judy? The UN won't dare to find me. I expect their answer any moment. I'm not sure what he was demanding of the UN. Probably to surrender all their governments or something, or give them like $1 trillion or some shit. I don't know. Face and turn and face thy answer, villain. What? No one could pierce the shell around this island. We know who that is. Thor. Thou did not reckon with the might of Thor, knave. Mine hammer did shatter thy barrier. It will shatter thy dreams of conquest. The thunder god. And he puts up his shield again. Well, perhaps I too am a god. Thor is not actually a god. He's an Asgardian. Tax thy power to the limit, cur. And then he strikes him with the lightning. He summons the lightning storm, of course. No effect. You still can't believe that anyone can match you in battle, can you? Well, you haven't seen a fraction of my might. Behold. He's throwing a whole building at him, but Thor's like, slam. Kablam. Perhaps I have underestimated the immortal. Yeah, Thor can shoot like energy beams out of Mjolnir. A lot of different writers handled Thor differently. They kind of evolved him a little bit later in the mid 80s. Yeah, but he got some feedback there. Somehow Graviton threw Thor's energy blast right back at him, and Goldilocks is in big trouble. It's now or never. Full repulsors. You know, the more that he's has to tax his power, the weaker, becomes. I guess that's the answer. It's working with full power of my repulsors, added to the thrust of my jet boots, is slowly pushing me off the slab. You'd think it would, crack the concrete slab or crush it or something. You must aid Thor quickly. Never mind for now. I can free the rest with this field disruptor I borrowed from Stark's lab in Avengers Mansion. You're talking to Tony Stark. They don't know he's Tony Stark, though. You bet your pointy ears, Panther. I'll be back when Graviton is finished or not at all. Yeah, I always liked when the Avengers didn't know who Iron Man was. Much more interesting. Thor's on the ropes. That's hard to believe. And Iron Man comes in full power. Slams on the ground there and almost breaks his force field. Very impressive, Iron Man. That desperate maneuver almost succeeded in accomplishing what Thor himself could not. And Thor's down. Thor's getting his butt kicked. But here come the event. Not for long, Gravy, baby. Yeah. Then he just puts him in a dome. He's like, okay, ready for my tricks. Yeah, Captain America, this time we're ready for your tricks. How absurd. Ready for my tricks. What a joke. And he just puts him in a bubble. But then he's like, he's worried about this. He's worried about this 304. Judy, did you see how? Judy? And he thinks Judy jumped off the edge. He thinks she's tricking him. He thinks he's jumped off the edge, committed suicide to her death. I mean, still pretty cool. It's their fault. No, now he's pissed off. I'll kill you all for this. I'm going to release all my power, and then, something's wrong. Can't control the power too much. They did the same. They kind of did the same thing to him in the Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. He let his anger get the best of him, and he summoned too much energy. Now, I always thought this was cool. So this thing is, so he's basically made himself into a black hole where everything is condensing into a giant massed, or a smaller, really dense, ball, the whole entire island, floating island. Stand by me, Avengers. When it hits, the shockwave will shake Manhattan like a major earthquake. And then you have Vision, Wonder Man, Thor, and Iron Man all catching it, which, probably would have killed Iron Man and probably would have shattered Iron Man's armor, knocked Thor out, probably knocked Wonder Man, and probably destroyed Vision. But, you got to have a story, right? Our combined strength. I don't know how many million tons this weighs, but let's get rid of it before our backs give out. And then they throw it in they throw it over. I mean, if it's 1,000,000 tons, it's going to, he's just speculating, but. And then it turns out she was alive. Jarvis got a sky sled and rescued her and saved the day. The Grim Reaper. That was kind of a quick. Jim Shooter was big on things that weren't major stories. Jim Shooter was big on trying to get things wrapped up in 2 or 3 issues. He wasn't a long 20 issue. Now, if it was some major event that was going to make Marvel a lot of money later in the 80s, he started running with all that stuff, Secret Wars and stuff like that. But that was a major event. But he wasn't big on the he's been quoted as saying, yeah, I felt like if you have too many ongoing storylines, it's harder for readers to kind of try to connect when they're, maybe a new reader. he was kind of like, always assume a new reader is reading your book. Next issue, I remember reading this when I was a kid. Next issue, George will be back and teaming with Jim and Pablo to present, among other things, the Return of the Grim Reaper. I remember reading that to George Perez. Because at this point, George Perez was my favorite artist. He was the one that, along with Sal Buscema. But he was the one that I saw in the my favorite Avengers artist, should say. I like reading these. The current multi-part story beginning of Avengers 153 carrying through Avengers Annual 6, Avengers 54. I went through all these. Supervillain Team Up number 9, and now Avengers 155 is the most exciting saga ever printed in your books. That's the one where they had the private war of Doctor Doom and all that stuff. Yeah, it was very confusing as a kid trying to get all this right. I had to have Avengers Annual number 6, which I did, but I couldn't find Supervillain Team Up number 9. For like fucking 4 or 5 months, I could not find that fucking book. It pissed me off. So I had an incomplete story. And they printed the fucking thing out of order. One reason why Jim Shooter got the job, because he put things back in order. Comic books weren't really doing that well at this point, like sales-wise. Marvel or DC. I mean, comics across the board. But Star Wars was just starting up during all this. Star Wars comic book. That saved the day. So George Perez is back. Oh, look at that cover, man. The Grim Reaper, the trial. Your friends are powerless to save you. The verdict has been reached. One of you must die. I love this opening. Here they are back, and these guys are taking off. They've got the Wizard, Ant-Man, not Ant-Man, Yellow Jacket, all the, Captain America, they're all going somewhere. I don't know. But they dropped these guys have been dropped off here. So we've got, just for the story, just for the purpose of the story, you got to have Scarlet Witch, Wonder Man, and Vision together here. Because the Grim Reaper, this guy here with the scythe, off of the panel that's in the mansion awaiting them is the brother of Wonder Man. His name is Eric Williams. The RZA. From Wu-Tang. He's a good chess player, too. He is a good chess player. The entire Wu-Tang. One of those guys is a good chess player. I think maybe they both are. After my long absence from the Avengers, the Wizard is he's like an old-timey World War II hero that came back. You'll see more of him on the Count Nefarious deal, but he was storyline. He's got a heart condition. He's Scarlet Witch's adopted father in the comic book. Now, they went on and ruined and muddled up the fucking origins of all these characters, but back in the day, this guy named Bob Frank, the Wizard, was the adopted father of the orphans. That's why her name is Wanda Frank here, because his name is Bob Frank, and it's not Wanda Maximoff. It's Wanda Frank at this point, because she's using her adopted name. So they think everything's all good, and Beast is all good and quiet at the Avengers Mansion because they've returned. And Beast is thinking back on his X-Men days here. I love that. Yeah, the Beast had joined the Avengers like about a year and a half previous in real time. Not in comic book time, but in real time. Remember, the X-Men were going to be canceled. The X-Men were only doing 6 books a year, and they were on the chopping block, and they were thinking about going down to 4 books a year. That was like going to be the and they just make each issue like a little bigger, the giant size thing. That was their plan to run with it. So they were kind of like at Marvel. They were like, what do we do with those characters? Because they didn't want to just scrap the characters. So they put Angel and Iceman in the Champions, the West Coast version of the Los Angeles version of the Avengers, basically, with Hercules and Black Widow and Ghost Rider. And they had Angel and Iceman, who were original. Right there, you see them. Original X-Men. And they didn't know what to do with the Beast, so they put him in the Avengers. I loved when the Beast was in the Avengers. This is my all-time favorite Avengers team. Because Thor would come and go. Like, Thor would come in and save the day, sometimes, but... And then all of a sudden, Beast comes flying through. Vision reacts by going intangible. Wonder Man ducks, and Black Panther grabs Scarlet Witch. It's like, what the heck? He's out cold, and his fur is singed. They're like, who the hell attacked? And we're back to the great old George Perez art. See the debris flying everywhere. He prided himself on like trying to put more debris and more mechanical details than the other artists. Like, look at this mechanical detail. He wanted to be like Jack Kirby in that sense, like that picture with the Grim Reaper there. What's the matter, my dear? He's like, look up there. Oh God, no, not him. Now he's been an old timey from the '60s. He's an old timey Avengers villain. That voice. Do you recognize me, Simon? You damn well better recognize me. I'm your brother, you moron. And he's older. He's got scars. I love these scars right here. For if you are Simon Williams, you got to remember, Simon Williams just got resurrected from the dead like the previous about 12 issues before this. Yeah, here's a picture of the old-time Grim Reaper. His first rendition of his comic book costume in the old comic books. A madman who blamed the Avengers for Wonder Man's apparent death. Wonder Man supposedly, he was created by Baron Zemo to destroy the Avengers. Jizza and Rizzo were the ones big on chess. Yeah. So Thor was part-timer like Batman was with the Justice League. Yeah, basically. Thor would come and go. You know what I mean? He was on the original Avengers, but he was very rarely a part of the full Avengers. Like they had him like as a regular for a very short amount of time. People always associate Thor with the Avengers. It's like it makes more sense than associating the Hulk with the Avengers, because the Hulk was only in the Avengers comic book one issue. Then the only reason why they put the Avengers or the Hulk in the Avengers is because they actually canceled the Hulk comic book after like the first 8 issues. The original Hulk comic book was actually, people don't know this. When the Hulk first came out, it didn't do well. And then they say, oh, we're going to throw him in the Avengers. And they canceled that book and they threw him in the Avengers. And then they decided to go ahead and restart up the book again. And then the Hulk kind of slowly caught on with the fans. But no, it didn't go over like gangbusters when it first came out. Another little trivia. The Avengers #1 comic book was released the exact same day as the X-Men #1 comic book. A lot of people don't know that either. Not that it matters or anybody cares. Oh. So they go through the Grim Reaper a little bit here about what his motivations and history with the Avengers are. I love this. Eric, it's nice to know that you guys are on a first name basis with the creep who almost wasted me. Beast is pissed off. He jumps up and he just gets smacked with his you're worth only the flat of my blade. But he's my brother. I can't. Yes, we must attack. And Wonder Man's like, he's my brother. I can't. And it's like, Scarlet Witch is like, I can and I will. You're going to pay for all the turmoil you've caused, Reaper. God, I love these George Perez panels, man. Now this right here, so he disrupts the Vision with his his scythe can do a bunch of stuff. It's got gimmicks galore. He can whirl it like that. It's got a comb. It's best known for like a comb array, but he can disrupt like machinery with it. But this bottom middle panel is George Perez signature panel. He does that kind of panel where you see the character, and then you see kind of like the outline of the character's face. He did that in the new Teen Titans a lot with like Raven, that Raven character and stuff. And now he hits him with the comb array here, it looks like. So it basically smokes them all, puts them down, and then I like how they have their insignias on their chairs. Scarlet Witch, diamond for Vision, and a little panther head there for, I don't know what the beast is. Maybe we'll see it later. And George Perez also goes ape shit with the Kirby energy crackle effect. He always does that. Man, this is awesome. Yeah, these side panels, like this side look like this from like the Vision right here. So basically this goes through the Vision's origin, which they had already done. You know, they used the body of the old Human Torch. Thor, that bum. What, Thor's not around? Yeah, he always like came and went, and like the other Avengers would lecture him, like, where in the hell do you go? Like, you just leave us, and then you come in and save the day and try to hog all the credit. These are some good old Avengers 1. He's going over Avengers 107, 108. Those are some good issues. That's before the Zodiac War thing. Zodiac War is good. That's a good story arc. That's right before George Perez takes over. As like George Perez was kind of the full-time Avengers artist for a while. They're just rehashing some shit. And then they got married, and not all of them were. So you're a bigot as well as a fool. No, my brother would never marry a stinking mutant. So you're a bigot. When the Avengers Mantis, and there's the true Mantis. There's not that Guardians of the Galaxy silly fucking Mantis, full-time gigolo. That's one character I hate in the MCU, is that Mantis. That's not the Mantis. Stinking muties. So he's doing like a mock trial here because what's going on is the Grim Reaper hates the fact that they share like brain patterns. Like my brother, you know what I mean? My brother and this stupid android, you know, this abomination android. Here's where Zemo, they like share an essence together. Here's where this is Enchantress, Executioner, and that's Baron Zemo. They're doing this little flashback of them creating Wonder Man, Simon Williams, but then he was betrayed by Baron Zemo, and the Avengers beat him. But then he was resurrected right here. Here's Black Talon. Avengers 152. That's my very first comic book I ever bought. See, he takes off his goggles. He goes, he is not Simon Williams, nor is he the same as any man who ever lived. He goes, you know? All right, it's true. I admit it. Look at my eyes. So it's just basically his brother is a shell. He's trying to prove that his brother is, you know, what the Avengers should pay for their crimes for like doing this to his brother. And then they made it matters worse by putting his brain essence, his synapses into an android. So he's putting the Avengers on trial here, basically. These Avengers, not the whole Avengers, but yeah, you see, he's just like a shell of living energy. Wonder Man is. Wonder Man's like, all right, I've seen enough. Enough of this. I won't let you, Eric. Your bands won't work on me. He put these disruptor bands on the Avengers here, where he can control it with a scythe, and it disrupts them if they get too smart alecky with him. You can see the Black Panthers down there. how easily they rendered all of you unconscious. Thus you remain until I have executed the Superfluous android. I don't think I'm saying that right. No, I won't let you, Eric. Your bands won't work on me. And he smokes them. I told you I've changed. My molecular structure is different now. Simon, you fool. Don't you realize what I've done and what I'm doing for you? Stay back. Eric, you're insane, Eric. Eric Trump. No. I have to stop you. I love that he throws this at him and he just slices and dices it with his scythe. Now, I paid the Black Talon a fortune to use his voodoo to raise your body and send it among the Avengers to kill them. See, he was the one behind the plot to resurrect him. Arrgh. They're always destroying Wonder Man's costume. And then his blade, he spin it. The motor is energized, though I warn you. And then it just breaks on Wonder Man. I love this. I love this panel. It's like, oh shit. That's awesome. It's over, Eric. Just leave me alone a little bit, okay? It's like the end. He just, that's sexist. Why doesn't the female costume? Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they're always destroying. There's a good reason why George Perez did that. George Perez was behind this. There was a good reason because they wanted to. You'll see next issue. Next issue is one of my all-time favorite comic. I say that a lot, but this one is one of my all-time favorite comic books. Perez returns to Avengers. New York, Marvel Comics editor James Shooter today disclosed that longtime avenging artist George Perez has returned from a brief vacation somewhere in the 23rd century. What they mean by that vacation somewhere in the 23rd century is he was doing Blast into the 31st century with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not sure where they said 23rd, but he was drawing Marvel Presents Guardians of the Galaxy. So I don't know what 23rd century, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're not referring to this, but at the same time, George Perez was drawing that book. So I think they screwed up. I think Mr. Perez was equally enthusiastic about the arrangement. It's good to be back, exclaimed the popular pace setter. There's just one more thing that worries me, he said, pointing to the splash page in the first issue. If everyone's so glad to see me back, how come the Avengers turned their backs on me? Oh, he's talking about the first panel when he had to draw the back of all the Avengers. Yeah, they're just making a joke. No, you're right. Resident psychoanalyst Steve Gerber was unavailable for comment. Steve Gerber was the guy that invented Howard the Duck. He was the guy that created Howard the Duck. But and he's known to write like real crazy stories and stuff. I mean, he invented Howard the Duck. I mean, how much more do you need? Blast to the... But that is the... man. That's the old style Guardians of the Galaxy. Major Vance Astro and Starhawk. Yeah, the Howard Duck licensing. You probably know something about... You've probably seen some... Maybe comic historian or something, or maybe you've seen some videos on Howard the Duck, or maybe you already knew it. I don't know. All I know about it is they were making fun of Donald Duck, Disney, or Donald Duck or Daffy. Daffy is Looney Tunes, the Black Duck. Yeah, is that right? God, I'm losing it. Yeah, Donald Duck. They're making fun of Disney, basically. Yeah. The OG Guardians. You like the OG Guardians, don't you? I do too. I prefer the OG Guardians. I prefer Vance Astro, Starhawk, Nikki, Martinex, Charlie 27. Yondu is the only one they ever brought. Now in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Sylvester Stallone actually played Starhawk. His real identity is like, Oh my God, I can't remember his actual name. I've got all the series with Valentino drawing. Ah, yes. With Jim Valentino's Guardians of the Galaxy is fucking awesome, dude. Stackar's, God, I can't remember his name. Yeah, I can't remember his full name. Yeah, I love Starhawk. As a kid, it was always just Starhawk. He's badass character, dude. But yeah, that's who Sylvester Stallone was supposed to be playing. They didn't have him in his Starhawk in this kind of costume or anything like that. But yeah, I love Jim Valentino's Guardians of the Galaxy. Those are fucking awesome. What's the villain guy that he created? My memory is going. Something face. Not Razor Face or... good God, man. Taser Face. What'd I say? Razor... What'd I say? Razor Face? Taser Face. Thank you. That's a Jim Valentino poker face. No, I fucking hate that song. Yeah, Taser Face. That's a Jim Valentino creation. Yeah, 100%. Oh, someday I want to go over those Valentino Guardians of the Galaxy. That's some good shit, man. Yeah, that's some good shit. I have those as well. I have them digitally. I don't have them physically, but I have them all digitally. Yeah, they're great. I've read them. That's where they have Starhawk as two. They kind of do a Firestorm kind of deal with Starhawk. They make Starhawk with that female version. They're kind of bound together. I can't remember. It's all slipping my memory. Ah, look at this greatness. Yes, there you go. So you know more about it than yep. Transhawk, yes. But that's another Valentino. That's another character Valentino created character, I think. Could be wrong about that, but I know Taserface created by Valentino. Because didn't they use the reference to that character in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and like Valentino said something about, made a joke about I should be compensated? I mean, there's a lot of these dudes have made some comments about, wait a second, we should be compensated for that stuff, you know. Marvel royalty, if you've ever heard about Marvel royalty issues, though, there's a lot of, especially like in the mid 80s, there's a lot of gray area going on with how they were doing the royalty program. But this is George Perez, Pablo Marcus cover right here, and all these little ants. That's awesome. Taserface, yep. I'm going to have to watch Guardians 2. I saw it in the theater, and I've only watched it one time since. And I think I fell asleep through about 3/4 of it. So I got to rewatch that sometime. This is an awesome issue. Of course, Jim Shooter again. But this is Henry Pym. This is right before Marvel started having it out for Hank Pym, the Hank Pym character. Stand by, little friends. I don't know who these weirdos are or how they got into Tony Stark's mansion. So he's basically gone through a mental breakdown here with the help of Ultron. I'm kind of spoiling it. But if they want trouble, Ant-Man will give them plenty. So he's basically has amnesia and does not know who these guys are. He goes, later on, he says, that guy looks like Captain America. Now, here's the first appearance of Wonder Man's new outfit, which there's a little bit of Marvel cattiness that goes on in the next couple issues because John Byrne takes over the art duties for a short period of time on Avengers, and he didn't like this costume because George Perez created it. So they had a little bit of rivalry going on. So I'm not going to spoil that, but you can see the ants coming through the air duct in the background there. I always thought that was cool when I was a kid. But I love this costume. A lot of people don't like it, but I love the W and then the upside down M, or the upside down, WM here. I guess M is an upside down W. Duh. This costume's ugly. This costume's badass, dude. How can you not like this costume? This is my favorite Wonder Man costume, man. That's badass. And then I like it better than the green one. I call the Christmas, like the green. I mean, this has green in it too, but I just like this one better. I love this one. John Byrne wasn't a fan either. You'll see what John Byrne does to it in a couple issues. But right now he's like, who are you frauds and what are you doing in here? He's like, what? Yellow Jacket? He's like, wrong, mister. And by now you should recognize the amplified voice of your new partner, the Ant-Man. So he's like, what the hell? New partners? Like, what the hell? And the Avengers are fucking confused here. They're like, what are you talking about? Everyone knows Captain America is dead. Surely this is a jest. Dude, that's more crisp. I'm just going by what people, I don't call it that. I'm just going by what people call it. I'll argue with you over it's personal opinion. I love this outfit. But this, especially when I was a kid, I thought that was much cooler than the green one. And better than the one where he's just wearing like the jacket with the pockets. That's when they took the mask off of him when they made him like a stunt man. That's the Wonder Man. That's when I started losing interest. Wonder Man was my favorite character at this time when I was a kid. He was just badass. Big, strong dude. He was my favorite Avengers character. I mean, I still like Captain America and Iron Man and everything, but this is the only place you got to see Wonder Man. Avengers comic books, the only place you got to see Wonder Man. That was the appeal. So, he's sitting here under a magnifying glass. I love that effect. He's like, right, I'm here for the first official meeting of the Avengers, and they're all sitting there going, you're joking. Surely is a back off, red puss, and you can drop the weird hollow voice bit. Special effects don't oppress me. Yeah, so we've got... So he thinks they're all intruders, and he's here for the actual first Avengers meeting. And everyone's like, I always thought, what could Ant-Man do to the Avengers? You're about ready to find out what Ant-Man can do. He's like, attack, and all these ants fly into the slits before he can seal them. He's like, I couldn't seal them up in time. And then he slugs Captain America with his, even ant size, I pack a wallop. Iron Man may be a traitor, but you're the one that really makes me mad, fella. I'm going to make you pay for profaning Cap's legend. And then I guess Scarlet Witch doesn't like ants. Ants are all over her. Blast it. How do you fight a guy who can drastically disappear into a swarm of bugs? At least he can't hurt me. I love this picture here. Brother, you need an education. Ant-Man picks him up and flips him. Whap. Meanwhile, in the Avengers room, the records room of Avengers Mansion, Beast and Black Panther are going into battle here. I become partially intangible, subjecting the bothersome insects touching my body to disruptive shock. I am helpless, but they fall away, temporarily paralyzed. I'm helpless, however, to aid the others, and this is badass. George Perez going full throttle here. They're like, ants? What the hell? You guys have a picnic and didn't invite me? That's the Beast, always joking. And then Ant-Man comes up and slams Beast and Black Panther. Dude, they weren't making any better comic books than this when I was a kid, man. I was like, oh, shit. Gone. I missed it. Unbelievable. He had his growth momentum to his striking power and decked them both. So you still have a swarm of ants coming around. She's crying out for her brother. Damn your cold logic vision. We can't fight a microbe. So here comes the Wasp in her new outfit, revealing outfit. She's got slits all the way down the side. They were always changing her outfit like this is another George Perez. They must have changed the Wasp's outfit like 4 times in the span of like 15 issues. So the Wasp has to come out and slam him with her bio blast. And then, don't worry, Wasp, I got him. What? Wonder Man, never seen anyone move that fast. So they put him back to full size here. And here's the Wasp. She's like she's kind of like a fashion designer thing. Yeah. So they always had her in a new costume. I like this one. Oh, Chubbles, shut up. Chubbles out there begging. The Wasp outfit I like is that white and blue one. I don't know if we'll see it. I think we will. I don't like the red and blue one. See, right here they show like he's getting frustrated with his experiments, and he's always this is like Marvel's start of like killing this character. They had it in, I think Jim Shooter had it in for this character because later on, years down the road, they make him a wife beater. They put him in jail. That's when you get the Scott Lang Ant-Man. Scott Lang Ant-Man is not a thing yet. There's another 2 years down the road. That was George Perez was part creator of that character with David Michelinie, I think was the other guy. But here here's her. This is the first appearance of this character, this outfit of the Wasp. She's trying to stir up the romance back between him, but at this point, it's like they're headed for a divorce. And he also was jealous of Tony Stark, thinking Tony Stark was making the moves on Janet Van Dyne in the comic books. As a kid, I didn't really care about that kind of shit, but I mean, it was kind of. I knew what was going on when I was reading the issues and stuff, but here we have, she's back home. I don't know why she's got a picture of Reed Richards on her wall. She's got a picture of Reed Richards on her wall. I had forgotten that. And then the pictures. See, I liked the old days when they hung out in their costumes. You know what I mean? They were in their costumes a lot. And then there's somebody in her apartment. The Beast dropped her off incognito here. He's the chauffeur, or he's the chauffeur basically. And she's like, "What? No, not you." And it's like, so I was in suspense. Like, who could that be? You can probably guess who it is or what it is. So right here, they're trying to snap him out of his bullshit here. His whatever's going on with him. His nervous breakdown, his conditioning, his brainwashing, whatever. They also had a run where Hawkeye was sent back thanks to Kang the Conqueror. They had a storyline where Hawkeye was actually sent back to the Old West. And then they brought the Old West some of the Old West characters to the present. And that was part of like a Kang conflict that they had. Rawhide Kid, Two Gun Kid, Rawhide Kid, all that. Yep. Yeah, there's Two Gun. You're not in 1873 anymore, Two Gun. This is 1977. I'll guarantee you, old man Rockwell isn't packing irons, and neither are you, dummy. Right. Yeah, one of the characters that went back, I think it was with Kang. I think it was Thor, Hawkeye. And then they went back to the Old West, and then, yeah, they had a big conflict. But, like, Clint Barton, like, preferred going back there, kind of like Doc Brown and, Back to the Future 3. He wanted to stay in the Old West, Fuck all this modern shit. That's kind of how they handled the Hawkeye thing. So here we go. I see it in your eyes, Cap. There is still no word from those we summoned. None. So they're trying to summon all the Avengers going on. They're trying to summon Hawkeye. They're trying to they're trying to summon anybody that could come to like snap him out of this, like memory wise, because it's like his brain has been erased to a certain point, and he's like being conditioned. So they're trying to like bring, it's kind of like they do with people that have Alzheimer's or something. They try to get familiar faces around them. Hold vision, footsteps in the hallway, heavy limping. Guys, he's got Jan. He's coming. Jan, my Janet. There's a heartbeat of stunned silence. And then you see bam, and then bam, Ultron. George Perez always draws Ultron a little beefier than a lot of the artists. Like in a lot of the panels, he draws he draws him more, his robotic form, a little thicker. That doesn't look much like Ultron from the movie. This is I love this panel. My fourth grade teacher, was I in fourth grade or third grade? My fourth grade teacher named Miss Grady, her older son that was in high school was a big comic book fan, and he was an artist, and she knew how much I loved comic books. I think I was in fourth grade. Yeah, had her son draw this picture of Ultron and bring it in for me. It was really cool because she knew. Because the only thing I wanted to read were comic books. Like, they tried to get us to read stupid ass books, like, and I was like, no, I was reading this shit, so. And she's like, well, this reading level is a lot higher than fourth grade. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's the only thing I'm going to read, We had like a book in the library about Godzilla movies and shit. I read that. But, yeah, I didn't want to read it unless it was like a Marvel comic book. But yeah, she had her son, who was a pretty talented artist, draw this panel right here of Ultron. It's kind of cool. Because this is like my first time seeing Ultron. I knew about the character, but this is like my first time getting comic books off the spinner rack that had Ultron. I was like, oh shit, that is cool. I mean, kid, you got to love this. And of course, Ultron created the Vision, so do your worst, Ultron. My body, they always say that. My body is impervious, and then they end up getting smoked. Avengers attack, and then like Wonder Man's like, right, sure, yeah, we'll just jump on in. He just fucking leveled the Vision. Bam! I mean, look at that shit, man. They just don't make comic books. This fucking garbage they're trying to pass off on comic books today. Jinx's nephew has demonstrated. I have my Discord up. Changing his idea. Get the fuck out of here. These people are so goddamn delusional. Kablam! And the Avengers just go flying. Interesting, though, you were the hardest struck by my force. You recover first, Iron Man. This suit isn't for show, ugly. Wonder Man, you okay? I'll live. Iron Man took for granted that I'd follow his orders as if he considered me an Avenger. Yeah, he's kind of not 100% all in the Avengers yet. They're still kind of unsure about him. I mean, he just got resurrected. He was a villain. He's created to destroy the Avengers. Your alloy steel armor is indeed a Marvel Avenger. Compare with my armored skin made of pure, indestructible adamantium. My power draining out of my armor and into mine. Power siphon built into your skin must break away. Too late, Iron Man. Now, this is an encephalo beam. Anytime you see that beam like penetrate the head of the character, and it like instantly puts you in a coma. Ultron is the one that developed the scythe for Grim Reaper in the old comic books, like the same. Yeah, he says it in this panel actually. How unfortunate that the Reaper failed to keep his bargain with me. Wonder Man would have proven an interesting study subject. Amazing, it took almost 2 seconds for Wonder Man to fall after my encephalo ray struck him. Encephalo ray like puts you in an instant coma. Like just turns your brain off. Badass picture of Scarlet Witch here. Oh my God. That's right, Murder. Your time has run out. I like Jim Shooter's writing. Did you forget me, or did you presume that a woman was no threat? Idiot! I'm the most dangerous threat you ever faced. I'm a witch. It's fusing his circuits. He said. The wall's collapsing, and then he falls through the. No more Ultron. Yeah, well. Exactly. Eventually, my power will destroy you, Ultron. Then he falls through. Well, here one issue I have with Jim Shooter writing is he kind of makes Captain America a little bumbling, just a little bit. This is a good example. Not really bumbling, but he really downplays Captain America a lot. And with the other writers like Jerry Conway and stuff, not that I'm super crazy about Jerry Conway, but they always like made Captain America a little bit more substantial. In the comic books, Captain America had super strength, but it wasn't that great. It was maybe like 6-7 times the strength of a normal man. And then what happened, he had a reaction to a poison given to him by one of the villains that boosted the super soldier serum that gave him actually like super strength, like even like stronger than Spider-Man type super strength. Spider-Man's strong, in the comic books, like where Captain America could, but not during this run. He could bend steel, like he could dig his hands into steel. They had a panel where I might bring these comic books up sometime. I might do it tomorrow or something. The Captain America, where he can actually dig into steel and like crush steel. It was a short-lived time. It was a short like story arc where he gained that super strength, and then he went back. It faded, and he went back. 800 pounds max. So maybe 616 Cap could press 800 pounds. Right? No, 100%. But during that time, they gave him actual boosted his strength. But it wasn't like Thor level or Wonder Man. Yeah. So, there's some little bit different. But just like I said, for a short period of time, they gave him like steel crushing strength, which I don't know what that would equate to in like bench press, like bench press pounds or anything like that. But it's like, good work, Wanda. You did it. He's smoldering. And they're like, no, Cap, get out of the way. And then Cap's body is used as a shield. Die, woman. And they're like, oh, boy. And then Ant-Man jumps in. But he suctions Ant-Man up in his, like, fingertip capsule prison. Thus you are mine, father. Like, whoa. Now, there was a interview with George Perez sometime in some comic book magazine where him and John Byrne was kind of the up and coming guy at this point, like getting a lot of becoming the fan favorite over George Perez. And George Perez hadn't been around that long, but he was assistant to Rich Buckler, who was a real popular artist in the early 70s. But they had a competition of like who could draw like the biggest details, like how much debris. Like, oh yeah, George does that much debris. I'll even do more debris, or I'll do more circuitry details. So they had a little friendly competition going on. I don't know how friendly it was for a while, but they had a little friendly competition going on with it. But that's one reason why George Perez left Marvel to go to DC in 1980, because he felt like he was being. He felt like he was being slighted a little bit. So he said, I'll go over there. And he was the big deal over there for a while, But Jarvis comes in, God save us all. I love this. They're all crumpled down and all that debris and shit. And as Ultron takes off. But we don't see Thor again. The Bride of Ultron. Now, yeah, this is a famous storyline here. I mean, look at this badass cover. Is that George Perez? It looks like a different embellisher, though. It doesn't look like Pablo Marcus. I do not know. That's got to be George. There's a little bit of Jack Kirby in that Wonder Man, though. You know what I mean? Look at the hand. I don't know. I'd have to look up who did this. I'm looking for the signature and I don't see it. Normally, Perez, you can find Perez's signature on the cover. Avengers at war with the most indestructible, unstoppable menace. Avengers. I love this. Thor's throwing his hammer. Black Panther is doing nothing. What's he gonna do? Got the most. I used to have those. Back in the day, I had those. I no longer do. But yeah, they had like the handbook of all the characters and shit. Yeah, those were cool. What year did you get those? The one I had was from the mid, like 86 to 87. Handbook. Yeah, that's what it's called. DC did one. Yeah, I might be talking about the first volume. I know Rob Liefeld contributed a few pictures. That was his very first thing he did for Marvel. He did two of the pages of the second volume of that Marvel Universe Handbook with the Zodiac. One was from I had the one from the early 80s. Yeah, I had some of the late 80s too, but I had them all from the early 80s. They would go like from A to E and then E to blah, 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 whatever. You get the idea. You know what I mean? And DC did one. Now I didn't know about the early 90s one. I have never seen that. I don't think I have, but DC did one during right around the time of the Crisis of Infinite Earths thing called Who's Who, and it actually did better. It was more well received than the Marvel one with fans. But yeah, that Who's Who, because they were trying to consolidate their universe. All the covers connected. Yep, that's really cool. But yeah, DC did that Who's Who, because that Crisis on Infinite Earths was like a big deal. You know, George Perez took that over and did that. Man, he did an awesome job on that. That was crazy. I remember that. And I wasn't a DC guy, but that's when DC was starting to, if Marvel's here, DC was starting to bridge the gap a little bit, because Marvel was the clear early 80s was clear, just kicking DC all over the place. You know, DC was way down there. And the mid 80s were a little different. DC started, Marvel went downhill a little bit, like around 86. Yeah. Then you had, of course, you know, John Byrne and Frank Miller going over there, and that didn't help their cause any. Keith Giffen left Marvel and went over and did Legion of Superheroes, and that was a big deal for them. But anyway, let's get into this. Here we go, Bride of Ultron. This one's talked about. You can get this in like a hardcover collection. All the issues I'm going over now, you can get in a hardcover collection. But Bride of Ultron, Thor, thank heaven you're here, sir. Yeah, there's Thor again, showing up. Showing up, going, let's go get Ultron. You know, in Endgame, when Super Brie Larson came down. Yes, 100%. Yes, first appearance of Joe Costa. Yep. Yeah, but when Brie Larson came down, and she was like, it's easy. Let's just go get Thanos. That reminded me of kind of what Thor used to do. He'd show up and they're like, oh, now you show up. We could have used you. And then he's like, who's with me? You know, let's go get him and all this. And like, we just got our butts kicked, brother. Yeah, I love Joe Costa. There you go. Speak of the devil right there. Now, you don't know what's going on, but Yeah, Thor. No, trust me, I'm not comparing Thor to Brie Larson. I don't even call her Captain Marvel. I call her Brie Larson. Trust me, I love Thor. Yeah, but it kind of I kind of reminded of those times of these old Avengers stories. As it got to the point where Jim Shooter would write the characters going, "We're tired of you showing up last second." You know what I mean? Either you're with us or you're not. Quit just showing up. But they had to have part of like a story. Hey, you got to have a story. So here's Ant-Man here, and he's trying to he's still trying to fool Ant-Man into thinking that the Avengers are, these frauds and things are going back to the day of, pre-Avengers. But he's got Janet Van Dyne hooked up, and he's trying to siphon the essence of Janet Van Dyne into Jocasta. That's this whole setup here. But he's acting like he's befriending. What kind of gets me is there's a little bit of inconsistency here from Perez about how he's depicting Ultron. Right here, he depicts Ultron much smaller than like he did in the other issue. Or maybe it's just the point of the perspective here is kind of off, or could be he's behind on the deadline and he's rushing to get these panels done. This is a lot of work, man. You never think when you're a kid, like you're looking at all this, reading this stuff off the spinner rack. This is a lot of work from the artist. I mean, all this hinges on the fucking artist, man. Here's the Rawhide kid. He's reading a comic book. This hombre Kirby draws Rawhide pretty good. Yeah, I love these little references, these little meta references Marvel does. God, I miss old comic books. It took us hours on the phone to trace him to that crazy dude ranch where he's working, and we still can't get through to him. Is he worth all this grief? We're talking about Hawkeye. Still can't reach Hawkeye. They're trying to track down Ultron here. And Jocasta's got life. The phase is critical, Ultron. And you can see she's sweating here, and this reminds me of that Star Trek episode where they're trying to do this with Kirk, making the android Kirk. Oh, that's a cool panel. My life, I'm becoming different, better. I sense the body is magnificent, a miracle of cybernetic technology. And yet it is so cold. So basically a robotic version of Janet Van Dyne. In an adamantium body. So the ants show up and spell out Stark. So subconsciously, Ant-Man is trying to send a message to the Avengers, is what Jim Shooter's getting at in this story here. Blasted, I'm sick of waiting. If I could get my hands on that robot creep. I was created to defeat all the Avengers single-handed. I know my strength could. Thou shalt crave far greater strength. If the battle thou desirest comes, do not waste the might that is thine. Mark my words, mortal. Thy first true test is yet to come. And then the ants come and spell out Stark Labs. And Avengers assemble. Off to Tony Stark's Stark Industries. The harbinger of a storm of vengeance, evil one. Turn, Ultron, face me. Yeah, Ultron's shaking in his boots from the Black Panther. Now, this is the old Black Panther with no technology, just agility and scientific ability and all that. But he doesn't use any kind of weaponry or the Black Panther and Marvel. They started doing that in like maybe the 90s, late 90s, where they started giving him weapons and stuff. He used to just be like an acrobat. He is not alone, monster. Not by a long shot. I love these dramatic entrances from the Avengers here. Very dramatic Avengers. It'll take far more than 3 of you. And here's Wonder Man. Wonder Man, but you were struck by my encephalo beam. You should be in a coma. Make it 4, Tin Head. What, a coma? So they were mourning the other Avengers. They were like Captain America and Beast because they think that they think they're dead. They don't realize it's just a coma. My encephalo beam is much like the coma ray I built for the Grim Reaper who has served me in the times past. Except I can intensify it to kill instantly. He's aiming at Thor. No, we can't afford to lose. Iron Man. He's dead, Thor, just as you would have been. Shove it, Ulti. This armor is made to take worse than that. Boom. Full power of repulsors as Ultron goes flying. Iron-bound idiot. No amount of force can damage my body. Build a pure, indestructible adamantium. I love the way Jim Shooter writes Wonder Man's inner dialogue throughout all the time in the Avengers. He's always got like insecurity, self-doubt. This isn't easy as I thought it would be before. I feel empty. I was watching myself from outside, like I'm not really here. Attack for our comrades. Yeah, this is a famous panel. This has been reprinted right here. Thor seems so sure. Thor doesn't seem scared is what he's about ready to say. Good Lord, Ultron hits like Thor's hammer. Yeah, this panel right here, Ultron just smoking him. There's not much I can do against Ultron. At least Black Panther realizes that. Hank, you can stop now. The need for the pretense is over. Just a sec, you're going to be over, pal. There, I finished. From here on, the process will continue automatically to completion. Now I'm free to help Ultron waste you. He means it. This is no act. Must strike quickly. As the transfer is still going on. The transfer is nearly complete. I am sorry. Wonder Man attacks. Oh, he kicks Ant-Man. The helmet goes flying. Can't let him shrink and elude me long enough to summon an army of ants to destroy me. I can ask questions later. Your mightiest blows cannot harm me. Thor throws his hammer at Ultron. Iron Man has recovered. They've got an error here in the lettering. They've left out the E. I don't know if that was in the comic book. Yeah, it probably was. Iron Man has recovered. Got to bear down. And I'm fighting if I were made of wood. Got to bear down. Because he's scared. He doesn't want to die. He's died before. Now they've got Ultron. Good work, Wonder Man. Thy ploy has deceived the monster into grappling with thee. It wasn't a ploy. I sense hesitation on your part. As Thor's got his hammer on his neck, just kind of like they did Thanos in Endgame. I wonder if this was any inspiration. Surely they read the best Avengers comic books before they made the movies. Right? Please just throw me that nugget to make me feel a little better. Because why would you not? She and the Wasp are one and the same. Destroy her and the Wasp dies too. Maybe I'll chance it. This thing isn't Jan. And it isn't made of adamantium. I'm wrong. I thought Jocasta was adamantium. It isn't made of adamantium like you are. I can smash it. Yeah, but surely it's made of something substantial. It's not just tinfoil. Why didn't you make Jocasta adamantium? Because if Jocasta ever turned on him, that's why. Do not harm my woman. It's always a woman that gets him. Why would Ultron need a bride? I mean, I guess so. I guess Ultron gets lonely. I don't know. Then it's over, thank God. Thor, I have to tell you, you did us well, Avenger. We will talk later. He's like, I was not faking when I hesitated. I was scared. You will pay dearly for this victory, Avengers. He's taking off. but they still have the issue to deal with. Crazy Hank Pym. Epilogue, Death to the Demigod. The Champions guest star. Next issue. I'm trying to think what the next issue is. I don't think it's drawn by George Perez or anyone I like. I'm thinking the next issue is drawn by George Tuska, if my memory is holding out. And it's probably not an issue I'm going to go over. George Tuska. I was right. I remember this. I remember this vividly now as a kid. I was not happy when I picked this issue up. Because look at the cover. The cover's awesome. Cover is George Perez, right? Pablo Marcos cover. Awesome cover. You've got the Champions, which I love the Champions. You got this fucking cool ass picture of Iron Man slugging it out with Hercules. Don't do it, Shellhead. Stop. And the Beast and all this debris. And I was thinking, another George Perez masterpiece. And then the old deadline. See, a lot of times they would have the next issue planned, and they would put a writer on the next issue or a artist on the next issue when they knew that there was like a major storyline that had to be finished up. And, the artists get behind. And Jim, this is right before Jim Shooter took over because Marvel was missing deadlines like crazy. Like I remember there was many times like this where, let me just get in. This is George Tuska art. And I like George Tuska. He's more of a Silver Age artist. His art looked a little dated back then, but he did a big, long run on Iron Man in the early 70s. So George Tuska is now Pablo Marcos saves the day because Pablo Marcos makes a lot of people look good. But George Tuska was never in the same ballpark as George Perez or John Byrne or anything. I mean, you can just see right there. It's just a lot. The art's more dated. Now, I like George Tuska, don't get me wrong, but it's just not. It just doesn't look as good to me. But Pablo Marcos makes it look. There's a lot of George Tuska that doesn't look near this good. Because Pablo, when you have Pablo Marcos, Pablo was just a tracer. Those tracers, I call them embellishers, but inkers. We were having that Frank Miller conversation, right? And people are like dogging on Frank Miller. Frank Miller isn't a great finish artist. He's never been. He's got a certain visual style, panel to panel, that people love, like the people that move the needle for a lot of people. Me for one, I love Frank Miller's Daredevil and all that stuff. It looked like I was watching it looked like Hong Kong cinema. You know what I mean? When you're going from panel to panel. But as far as finished art, he's never been great. Klaus Janson was the inker, tracer. But you can see a lot of the embellisher's hand in a lot of the stuff because if they're behind on deadlines, they'll do loose pencils and then get it shipped over. When a page is done, they get that page shipped over. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just talking, but I'm not saying you don't know this stuff. But embellishers can make or break you, man. And Pablo Marcos to me, my favorite. Him and George Perez are like one of my favorite. Oh yeah, I knew what your mother's a tracer. You can trace a chalk line around your body or dead body. Yeah, He goes, he's dealing with being a tracer. But yeah, the embellisher, I've seen even John Byrne, my favorite artist of all time, John Byrne art where it's been loose and inker will come in, not just Terry Austin, but like Klaus Janson, it'll come in. You can really see their hand in the art. I got a great example. I'm not going to show it right now. There's a great example of an Avengers comic book that John Byrne does the art to. I I think it's Avengers 180 or 181 or something like that. But you can see Klaus Jansen's hand all in it. Like they almost like tag team the entire art, you know. And then you'll see an issue where it looks more John Byrne, like it's not a hybrid looking art. You can tell John Byrne gave him much more finished pencils, you know. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to that when I was a kid so much. I do now, but as a kid, I liked my artists, though. I mean, I started buying books just for the artist. But George Tuska was not a guy that moved the needle for me. But this is the best George Tuska's. See, look at this Repulsor Ray Blast here from Iron Man right here. It's like that just doesn't look, to me, this just doesn't look as good to me as like a George Perez battle or a John Byrne or even a Sal Buscema battle scene. Like this panel here with Typhon doing this to Beast, and I just don't like that. That looks like a rush job to me. You know, I wish I could draw that well? Of course. I would give my left testicle to draw this well. But, I mean, he's a legendary artist, but this just does not look, as kids, we were like, this is disappointing when I got this. I remember being disappointed when I got this comic book. Like, I went from Ant-Man Attacks and Bride of Ultron to, you know, George Perez, Pablo Marcus to this, the next issue. I'm like, okay. I didn't really care. And I was kind of hyped because they said the champions, you know. But they ended up not really battling the champions. They're battling Typhon. Now, oh boy, a turning point for the Beast, the Secret of Wonder Man's, and the Lethal Legion. Now, see, this was just like they were missing deadlines. And George Perez actually left the book for a little bit. They had touted George Perez's return. And I've got physical copies of all these books right here. Woo! This is George Perez with, I do not know that embellisher. That name does not sound familiar to me. But that's George Perez but I love this cover. That was a filler issue. That's what I was trying to say. That was this is John Byrne. This is a John Byrne. This is a little mini John Byrne. I don't know if they had George Perez like finishing up another book. You know what I mean? Who knows? I know John Byrne got behind on a Captain America deadline because he got married. Like he actually got married, went on his honeymoon, and still got the book in on time because there was a big controversy about at Marvel at the time, like early 80s, if you did like 7 books in a row, you got a bonus. They would give you like an incentive bonus for being consistently on a book, and not Jim Shooter brought all this on to make deadlines. And if you had a sequential run of books, you would get your page rate would go up, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess John Byrne, Roger Stern got sick. He had like a stomach virus or something, and he was in the hospital a couple days, and Byrne was getting married on his honeymoon, and they still got the book in, but Jim Shooter was threatening to put a filler artist in real quick, and they were going to lose their bonus. And John Byrne said, I'm tired of this. I'm getting tired of this stuff. He's like, I don't, he didn't miss deadlines. So a lot of that shit was going on. But I love this. The Lethal Legion is back and the Avengers are finished. Now we've got guest penciler John Byrne. Now you got to remember, John Byrne was doing Marvel Team Up this is pre-X-Men. This is John Byrne pre-X-Men. This is 1977. This is mid-1977. He was also doing awesome issues of Marvel Team Up. Some of the best Marvel team-ups ever, with Chris Claremont writing. But this is Jim Shooter. So they're still studying Wonder Man here. And you don't see a costume. the Beast is always like doubting like why he's in the Avengers. You know what I mean? He's always kind of he feels like he's like, I'm a fifth wheel, and boy, he says he misses Patsy. He's talking about Patsy Walker, the Hellcat. He kind of had a thing for her. But then he's getting mobbed on the street by groupies. Chubbles. Ugh. Let me give Chubbles some treats real quick. Damn cat. Chubbles. Cat. That cat's still at my door. Good God, cat. Oh, man. Yeah, he's getting mobbed by groupies here. And it's Count Nefaria. Avenger being mobbed by that fawning crowd. Perhaps he won't notice me. They have some history. Like, the Beast doesn't know, has never encountered Nefaria. He has encountered Nefaria, but it's been a long time. You see the N ring. I like the ring on his finger here. Nefaria is an X-Men villain originally. He's the one that, he's basically the first villain they encountered after the new X-Men. He killed Thunderbird. He was responsible for the death of the Thunderbird and all that. But he's coming here recruiting some supervillains here. This is a guy named, I can't remember his real name, but he calls him Power Man. Oh, what's that guy's real name? His first appearance was in a Luke Cage comic book in like 1973, I think, where they were fighting over the name of who was going to have the right to be called Power Man. So he's like, Power Man. He goes, hear me, I know who you are, Power Man. He goes, Mister, you just made a big mistake. I lost that name a long time ago. Power Man number 23, Archie Goodwin. Yep. I think Archie Goodwin, who's the editor on the book, editor of Avenger, I think he might have been the one that wrote that issue. Could be wrong about that. I don't ever want to hear it again. Of course, I recall now. There's a self-styled hero for hire who calls himself Power Man. I heard that the two of you fought over the right to that name, and then you were badly beaten. Yeah. I used to have that comic book. I've got it digitally, but it was just a hologram. Nefaria was just casting a hologram there. A simple illusion obviously has some small skills with devices which cast images. I am Count Nefaria. You have guts, pal. All right, I'm your man. He's recruiting supervillains here, but there's a nefarious reason why. And they're breaking into a bank. Here's the three villains that Nefaria recruited: Living Laser, Whirlwind, and Power Man. And the Wizard, Bob Frank the Wizard, thinks he's going to go take them on, and Scarlet Witch is like, Dad, that's adopted father. What the hell are you doing? You're an old man. You've got a heart condition. You're retired. You're not a superhero anymore. But they'll be needing the power of the Scarlet Witch. Better hurry. If only that experimental flying belt I once tested for Stark was proven safe, I could use it all the way back in Avengers number 16. And they're breaking out of the bank, and the Avengers show up. God, I love John Byrne's art. And gets slammed by Captain America's shield. He goes, cool it, Muscles. We can take these wimps easy. The only Avenger who scares me is that Vision creep, and he ain't here. I love that. They're moving in. This Power Man slugs Captain America. Whoever this big guy is, he's strong, quick, and savvy enough to stay between me and my shield. And then Yellow Jacket slams Living Laser. So Ant-Man's all better. He's over his little mental condition. He's back to being a Yellow Jacket there. in between issues, Black Panther tries to tackle Whirlwind here and gets slung off. One wide field blast and atomize you both. I'll never be able to dodge it carrying T'Challa, but I've got to try. Then Scarlet Witch shows up. Scarlet Witch shows up to save the day, breaks a water main line underneath with her hex. Byrne draws a beautiful Scarlet Witch as well. So they get away, but they're back at Nefaria's lab. See, I just had a hard time with like when they bring in the fill-in artists from the. I mean, I understand they're Silver Age artists and all that, but it's like it really turned me off when they had filler artists and writers and filler issues in the middle of like this stuff with John Byrne and George Perez. I mean, it was so. A month is a long time when you're a kid. You know, I'm an 8-9-year-old kid. It's like I can't wait a month. He's here with this German scientist here, and they're plotting to actually siphon off the power of these guys and amplify it to put in Count Nefaria's own body. I remember how jarring it was when Larson filled in for McFarlane on Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, but at least Larson. Yeah, I prefer McFarlane. I mean, Larson's okay. I've never been a huge Eric Larson fan. But at least they were both modern. They were both like kind of in artists at the time. It's not like they were digging up some guy that was kind of past his prime to fill in. But I agree with you. That's a letdown. When I have a handful of artists that I really were fond of back in the day. You know what I mean? And it just, like, all my friends thought Jack Kirby sucked. Like, growing up in the neighborhood, I grew up in a 4-block span of where I had 8 or 9 friends. And maybe 7 of them were into comic books, 6 of them maybe into comic books, all different degrees of interest. Like there was a guy that was actually into comic books more than I was, or the same amount, but he did it. He was a year older than me. He was in it for he wanted to keep them nice. He was the first guy I saw put them in plastic wrap and boards, and he put them in his closet and he kept them perfect. And I wanted to read the fuckers. I was always trying to get into his closet. I'd go over to his house and we'd be playing Nerf basketball or some shit up in his room, and I'd always try to get in there and start reading them. He's like, "Nope, those aren't for reading." And I'm like, "The fuck you buying them for then?" Because I was about reading them. I'd lay them all out on my floor in my bed, in order and shit. I wanted to read the shit. But what was my point? Oh yeah, the younger, there was a lot of dudes that would see a Jack Kirby comic and they were like, "Ugh," because this is late 70s and Jack Kirby looked dated. George Tuska's art looked dated. Don Hex looked dated. Ditko, they didn't want to see that stuff. They wanted to see John Byrne. He was a huge John Byrne fan. They wanted to see Perez, John Byrne, Keith Giffen, Walt Simonson, those guys. Sal Buscema even, But and there was a couple others. John Buscema was always good. Yeah, oh no. Jack Kirby's the greatest. Dude, he's the GOAT, man. He's the greatest of all time. No one built worlds like him. But when you get used to a certain slick artist, at the time, like Byrne, I mean, to me, John Byrne's art is just visually appealing to me. It just flows. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're talking about Sal Buscema? Yeah, I love John and Sal Buscema. I'm a big Sal Buscema fan. And John Buscema, John Buscema drew the very first comic book I ever bought off the rack. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of all John Buscema's class. I mean, look at that old Conan. Look at those old Conan shit. You know what I mean? Now, I don't think if I've read Sal Buscema's Wolverine run, I don't remember it. But yeah, I love both those guys. I absolutely love them, but not as much. John Byrne, Perez are my two favorite. But I like them sitting around here on this table here. But John Byrne, just after reading a bunch of John Byrne comic books, I have a hard time picking up. It's just back when I was a kid, I had a hard time getting through the other ones. Rich Buckler was all right, but when looking at a Kirby. First issue that I picked up that got me collecting was Uncanny X-Men 22. Well, I love Mark Silvestri, man. Oh, that was the first issue? Uncanny X-Men 222. So you started kind of late as far as that. What was that? 90 was that 89? 222. Was that 1980? Yeah, it was sometime late 80s. I forget, you're younger than me. You're a little younger than me. So yeah, I wasn't in. Yeah, it had to have been 89. Maybe even 80. Let me do the math on that. It was 89. Yeah, it had to have been early 89 probably. I might look at that. I've got it. I've got access to it. But yeah, I love this. Too late. I hear outside. Quickly get away from the window, and there's a flying car. Collecting Marvel GI. Oh god. Oh my god, dude. I love Marvel GI Joe. Don't get me started. I was there on the ground floor. The fucking Larry Hama, Herb Trimpe. Yeah, I love Herb Trimpe. Herb Trimpe is a Silver Age artist that I always liked. He did Godzilla, Shogun Warriors. He would do some fill-in issues of every once in a while of Iron Man. He was best known for Hulk in the late 60s. He basically took over Hulk from Kirby. Yeah, he was big time. He was kind of like the new guy of the Silver Age. You know what I mean? Yeah, dude, I wish I had digital copies of the G.I. Joe. I don't think I can bring up G.I. Joe. I love Marvel G.I. Joe, dude. I mean, they're fucking awesome. I just love them. That's one of my big regrets when I abandoned my comic book collection, when I moved out of that from that girl that I was engaged to, and I fucking just left my comic books. I just fucking left 2,500 comic books, abandoned them. I was not in my right state of mind. All the G.I. Joes, dude, perfect condition, bagged and boarded in long boxes. Because I loved G.I. Joe. That was the number one thing I fucking marked on my comic book. We had the folder we had a place called Bright's Book Exchange in Muncie, Indiana. And when that place popped up, in the back, it was all dedicated to comic books. It was a used bookstore, but they had a comic book room. And you could have a folder, and they'd print out your monthly comics. You just check the box. I want this one and this one. And then if there was and they had there was an older lady that ran it, their grandmother, the owner's grandmother, and she knew comic books. If she knew it was something I liked, that, and I'm in 7th grade, if she knew it was something that I wouldn't want to miss, she'd mark it for me. I got to know them so well, because I was out there, I was out there 4 or 5 years. That was my go-to place, to get my comic books. I had to ride my bike. It's 2 miles outside of town, but I'd ride my bike out there, on the side of the highway. I get my comic books, and I'd have my backpack, and I'd go out there, and every week they'd have a different sheet that you'd sign your folder. And They liked me because very few times would I abandon a comic book in my folder. There was a couple like months where I couldn't afford to get every comic book because I'm sitting there going, yeah, I want this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Yeah, and then I'd go, oh, I don't have enough money, Yeah, basically a pull list. They didn't call it pull list. They called it just the check sheet, I think is what they called it or whatever. They didn't call it a pull list, but she's the one that got me on to Thor, Walt Simonson Thor. She goes, I checked off Thor. I said, I don't get monthly Thor. I don't, and she's like, you'll want to get this one. I was like, okay. I took her word for it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that was cool. But, yeah, I had a store for a while. I'm pretty sure my pull list paid their lease. Yeah, this place was kind of a rundown place. Like it was an old dusty. It was like a garage turned in it was like an old Jiffy Lube place, like turned into a bookstore. Oh yeah, it was awesome, man. Yeah, I remember because I knew who Walt Simonson was, but I didn't hear the news that Simonson was taking over Thor. Thor wasn't. The only time I got Thor was in the Avengers. And at this time, the Avengers were, like, not very good. Like, the Avengers went downhill, like, after 1981. The Avengers went, because the X-Men were they just, it's like Marvel stopped caring about the Avengers. I just didn't like it. And Thor was in that every once in a while, and I just got my fill of Thor. If he was in a Marvel team up, that's fine. But I wasn't getting Thor monthly. I would try to read them at the grocery store so I knew what was going on. But it just didn't move the needle for me. And when Simonson took it over, I was like, oh, man, this is a game changer, Because he did a lot of things that I wish they would have done with Thor years ago, Like cut out that Donald Blake. I never liked that Donald Blake persona and all that crap. And I wanted more of the Asgardian shit, and that's what he put into it, But here the Lethal Legion are breaking into Avengers, man. They threw a fucking car into I love this. We could invite them to a game of air hockey tournament, but no, they cheat. This is one of my favorite lines. Couldn't find the bell, guys. Couldn't find the bell. And they're like, come down here, punks. And they're... You got to remember their powers are amplified right now by nefarious German scientists. So Wonder Man almost gets knocked out, and normally Wonder Man would thrash Power Man, but right now he's fucking his powers. Like these three guys wouldn't be a match for the full Avengers, but their powers are like super amplified. And he picks Beast up and he smacks Beast a couple blocks away, about halfway across town. And you very rarely this is the first time I ever seen Yellow Jacket use his disruptor while he's full size. He never does it full size. He always does it, he's saying right here he upgraded his power. But you always see him shrunk down. He's like, nope, because he's pissed off. He's pissed off because that car hit the Wasp. The car back here, the car smoked the Wasp here. So they're thinking the Wasp might be dead. He's like, oh, you're recovering. He's ripping up the ground here. He's like, oh, my power's fading. They're like, what? He's like, blasted. I should have taken him at the start. What kind of hero am I? And all of a sudden here, Living Laser's power fades. They're like, well, we won, sort of. Wrong, Wonder Man. They lost, and we were cheated of our victory. Obviously, they were duped. Someone sent them here to be defeated. Someone who had no longer use for them. And, of course, we see the big reveal. Look out, a giant shockwave, but even the Hulk couldn't make one like this. I would like to see Nefaria against the Hulk. That'd have been cool. Nefaria, you did this. I can do anything, Captain America. So this is the new improved Nefaria. Dare not in Avengers Wrath. Let's see if there's any. Yeah, here's when Kirby came back. The Kirby universe explodes. The Eternals be here every month. Now, I bought one of the Eternals off the spinner rack when it first came out. and I just couldn't get into it. Just didn't care for it that much. It was kind of on the side of it wasn't really supposed to be like part of the Marvel universe. They did have an issue where they had like the Hulk fighting the Eternals later on when it never did sell well, even though Jack Kirby, they kind of said, okay, we brought Jack Kirby back. Let's humor him. Let's give him this. Let's let him run loose with this book. It might go over well. It really didn't go over well. The Jack Kirby hype of coming back had kind of faded at that point. He had done a run on Captain America, and he was basically relegated doing covers. But it says, be there every month. The Wonderment as only Jack Kirby and Marvel can present it. And then, because they kept it out of the Marvel universe, I think it would have been better if they would have like put it smack dab in the Marvel universe. But they did do an episode. They did do an issue where the Hulk, but it turned out to be like an android Hulk. So it didn't really make any sense. So I wasn't in. I had only ever bought one issue of the Eternals. That was Eternals #1, and it just wasn't my thing. I just couldn't get into it. At this point, the Star Wars comic book had come out, so that was kind of I was caring much more about that. Kirby left DC because they jerked him on and created New Gods. Yeah, he thought DC. He had go around and round with Stan Lee, and he created New Gods, and then he went back to Marvel and did a different version of them. Exactly. They did jerk him around, 100%. Kirby never got the due that he deserved. Too bad. Could you imagine how much money if they would have had the royalty program, like character royalty program in place when Kirby was around? That man would have been rolling in it because the guy built the fucking Marvel universe. I mean, you can't, him and, Kirby, Ditko, Wally Wood. Of course, you got to throw Stan Lee in there too. But Stan Lee was much more like the hype guy. He was much more, he was much more of the Walt Disney figurehead of, he wrote a bunch of books, but the way they wrote the book was he had Jack Kirby. He gave the plot. Jack Kirby had his input on the plot. Jack Kirby drew the visuals. Jack Kirby drew it. And then Stan Lee put in the dialogue. So the universe was built on the back of the Marvel method, basically. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can narrow it down to that. But you have a way of simplifying my ramblings. So the Marvel method. There you go. But that's what happened. I mean, so yeah, Jack Kirby was the world builder when it came to the Marvel universe. There is no Marvel universe without Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. Sorry. I don't care what anybody says. Sorry. I always liked this cover, but the Nefaria, Count Nefaria head right here kind of seemed a little out of place. I don't know. I love I still love the cover. I'm pretty sure that's George Perez cover. I could be wrong about that. It's hard to tell, like just how much they put, like they had like a embellisher put in on this. But this isn't one of my favorite covers. I think it's cool. He knocked the whole building over. It will be crushed and all this. It depicts on what actually goes on in the book. But the head always seemed a little out of place right here. Not one of my favorite covers. Now, the next issue's cover I like. But here we go. John Byrne, Pablo Marcus. I would have liked to seen these issues with Terry Austin inking these. That would have been awesome. But yeah, I'm here to snuff out your wretched lives. Bam. And here Beast kind of goes through his little spiel. I thought you were dead. I thought you were killed in the same blast that wiped out Thunderbird. He's talking about X-Men 95. The second issue of the new X-Men. Crazy how now some did sign the covers. Sometimes you can find the thing, and sometimes they didn't. So that's one of my things is always trying to find out who, without Googling it or whatever, you know what I mean, without getting the the comic book Wikipedia or whatever it is. I try not to rely on that stuff. I try to figure it out on my own. And then I can, and it drives me crazy. Then that's my last resort. But normally I can find it. Normally I can tell, but sometimes you can't tell because it might have a combination of the two different, hands in it. I have no use for your mutant scum anyway. And he just smacks Beast. But he goes, I don't care what power you have. When I'm done with you, you'll wish you have died with the X-Man you murdered. He goes, yeah, what? Oh, yes, that incident. They're referring to, that's Archie Goodwin, referring to X-Men 95. Luckily, I had arranged to be teleported to safety in the event of the disaster that he's talking about. In the same manner, my henchmen were teleported into Valhalla Mountain. They're still talking about X-Men 95. Yep. Foolish woman. It's going to melt that and then disfigure your beautiful face is what he says. Yeah. Such spirit and beauty, were you human, I would be tempted to keep you. God damn. She's a mutant. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people forget the fact that her and Quicksilver are mutants. What they, refer to as mutants. And here comes Wonder Man. Take a gander at Wonder Man's outfit. You won't be seeing it long when Neferi is done with it. And then he grabs Yellow Jacket right out of the air. Crack. You're tough, but that just means I can swing hard, and I'm the guy who laid out Thor. I'm new at this hero business. I don't know what to do all the time like the others. Yeah, they keep referring. Anytime Wonder Man's around, they always refer back to Avengers number 9, where he fights the Avengers. He's smoking Nefaria here, but then Nefaria gets up and says, well, you may be the strongest mortal who ever lived, except, of course, for me. I'm prepared for your punch now. And then I love this John Byrne panel. This is what I was talking about earlier when you'll see what I was talking about with the debris and everything. So Wonder Man goes flying through and Jarvis is like, oh shit. Jarvis, you would have been killed if you were 5 feet over. Mr. Williams, sir, are you all right? And there goes the costume. That is John Byrne's little jab at destroying George Perez's created costume. He's like, check on the power. I might have damaged it on the way in. Oh, the power. Oh, the vision. My goodness. Yeah, the Vision is still in like a android coma state from issue 161, 162 when he got when he got zapped by Ultron. I love this dialogue here with Jarvis. This is I'm stealing a little of this for the comic book I'm writing. I'm stealing a little bit of this because I love these panels here. Because there, the power reserve power is activated. Dr. Pym said he hadn't a clue as to how long it would take to regenerate the Vision's android metabolism. But I'd give my right arm to see him rise out of there now. I love that, man. That's awesome. If only you could hear me, sir. They need you. They need your help. Oh, dear me. I like that. That's how you write comic books. And this is some Cap throwing the shield. Like Captain America would need help. Like, is this really going to make a difference in the strength? I mean, I guess it would because the Beast is super strong, I love it. He just picks Captain America's shield out of Captain America's shield. You were a fool to relinquish it. And he tries to bend it. He goes, the shield resists my new strength. I don't understand this mere scrap of metal. And then he throws it. He just tosses away and he smokes Black Panther. They're regrouping, probably planning another attack. Idiots that they are. He's picking up the building. They're dead. None of them escaped. They're dead. You just don't see this shit in new comic books. You just don't see this kind of stuff. You don't. He's like, my God, he's toppling a 40-story building on top of us. Run, everybody. I mean, you just don't see this kind of, it's beer o'clock, sluts. It's just fucking nonsensical fucking writing. Read new comic books. I mean, it's fucking, oh my God. Go through them. I'm just like, those people have no idea what they're doing. They're dead. None of them escaped. They're dead. So here we go. Now, this is the first appearance of Henry Gyrich, the guy that's going to be taking over. He kind of, if you've seen Captain America, the Winter Soldier, is that the name of the second Captain America movie? Yeah, the one where they first have Winter Soldier. The Robert Redford character. Yeah. This is kind of represents the Robert Redford character. Now, I can't remember if they actually had a Henry Gyrich in the Marvel Universe. I don't think they did. I don't think they actually used that name reference. But this is the very first appearance of that character who, it's a big, long storyline coming up where he shows the government ID where he's going to try to take government control of the Avengers. And this is like a plot thread that starts unraveling. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Gyrich was the government liaison to the Avengers. Yep. So the Robert Redford character really isn't him, but it's the closest thing that they... there might be like a lesser... No. Paulson. Agent Paulson. But Agent Paulson isn't really like Henry Gyrich in the comic books. Like, this guy is an asshole, and he's much higher. He's got more power than that Agent Paulson ever had. The one that was Coulson. What was I saying? Paulson? Agent Coulson. Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't talked about this stuff in a while, man. I have to go back and look. The old memory's getting, little... I can remember shit from 1977. I can't remember shit from 2011. Because I just don't give a shit about the MCU as much as I give a shit about this stuff. But but this guy has much more like authority than Coulson. Coulson was more of a field agent type thing. But they're kind of similar type characters, His name was Robert Paulson. The actor? Now I'm confused. I'm all confused. Okay, never mind. I've gone on too long. But as you can see, he's got his little attaché case, and he's coming in, and then, Fight Club. I know what you're talking about. Yep. That's a movie I hated when I first watched it. That's a David Finch movie, right? The guy that did Seven and all that. You take that back count. Say you love the MCU or the mouse will find you. The mouse. Look, I like the MCU. I think they tried. But when you have too many hands on it, when you have too many fucking hands in anything, it gets ruined. You know that. The comic books have the luxury of normally one writer for a while doing the thing, and movies aren't. You can't compare movies and comic books. That's why I'm always going to like the comic books better. But the movies are just a different animal. You can't do all this. You know what I mean? You're going to have different. That's why I wish it were just the Russo brothers the whole way through, but it just doesn't work that way. Yeah, the MCU. Yeah, there's no. Yeah, especially from like 2008 to 2018 for the decade. It's not that bad. Yeah, it's really not that bad. It's just lately it's gone off the rails. But I mean, why not just make a Henry Gyrich character? Now, they might have had him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I only watched a few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't have time to watch or the interest to watch all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's just not that interesting to me. MCU is amazing until Endgame and then hit or miss. Yeah, it's kind of been that way. It's kind of been hit or miss. I liked the Spider-Man movie, Yeah, that last Spider-Man movie, and I like the Doctor Strange all right, but it's just not. Yeah, I was arguing with a guy at work the other day about the Ant-Man movie. He loved it, and I'm like, no. Anyway, Nefarious thinks he's destroying. He's after money like anything else, and then he sees this hottie here, this in the bell bottoms. I love the bell bottoms. Oh, she lost a shoe. Put me down, you're flying, as I can leap miles, little one. Remember, Superman, original Superman couldn't fly. He could leap tall buildings, but he couldn't fly. It looked like he was flying, but he couldn't. Yeah, the original Action Comics Superman could not fly. So he's kidnapped himself a little piece of ass here, old Nefaria, this old bastard, goes back to the but stronger, and he's explaining his little plot here that he took Russos are God, Spider-Man 4 is fantastic, legit, cheered and smiled and cried. Yeah, I like the Russos. I don't know if they're gods, but compared to Watiki Torch or whatever the fuck that dude's name is, he shouldn't be allowed 100 miles from a fucking movie studio, that dude, or a Marvel movie studio. That guy, who let that guy fucking in charge of a goddamn Marvel movie, superhero movie, must have been out of the claiming temporary insanity and shit. The Wizard, don't bother me, old man. This would have been a cool MCU deal. That or the Korvac saga. That'd been cool. I didn't really like the way they did Ultron in the MCU. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, Love and Thunder was embarrassingly bad. I wasn't a big fan of Ragnarok. Ragnarok was okay. It's just too much goofiness, man. Too much goofiness in a Thor movie. All right. I liked the first Thor movie because it took itself somewhat serious. It's not all goofy. He's hanging there and Surtur, and he's hanging there like in chain or whatever, and he's spinning around, and Surtur's sitting there talking to him, and he's like, oh, hold on a second. Wait till I come back around. It's goofiness like that I don't need. You don't need that shit. If your movie is hinging on that crap, you're in big trouble. All right? So right here, Wizard is explaining to Nefaria. I know this story. Wizard's explaining to Nefaria about, you're not immortal. You will die. You might conquer the world, but just like Hitler, you've acquired your strength just in time to watch it fade in the dregs of your youth. In 20, maybe 30 years, you'll be dead and the world will be rid of you, Count Nefaria. And he's like, oh shit, you're right. I have a new purpose. Another Hitler scarring the pages of history. The old World War II veteran, giving him the Hitler speech. I give you your life, Wizard, for you have given my power purpose. So he's going to try to hunt down Thor because he thinks Mjolnir is the source of his immortality or whatever, which is kind of weird because they're not immortal. They can be killed. I used to argue with my friend growing up. He's like, Thor would beat Superman because Thor is immortal and he can't be killed. And I was like, no, Thor can be killed. He's an Asgardian. They just think he's a god. He's not an actual god. He's an Asgardian. I love Thor Ragnarok. Thor was much more interesting as a bit of a goofball, in my opinion. Thor 4 was really bad. See, I don't like Thor as a goofball. That's the part of Endgame I didn't like. Or whatever movie that was where he's playing Fortnite. That part was like embarrassing to me when they went there and he's like, see, but that might be the difference between our generations. I'm assuming you're a lot younger than me. Fat Thor. See, I didn't care. I'm just assuming you're a lot younger than me. I grew up on Bravado, the Big Thorbowski. That's a good one. I grew up on serious Shakespearean Thor. Thor did not joke around in the comic books. He was always earnest and fucking, boastful, arrogant. I like boastful, arrogant Thor. Now, his inner dialogue might be different. He might be talking about, boy, I'm getting my butt kicked by this mortal. I can't believe it or something, but I like his outward bravado. I don't like him, Jane, Jane Foster dumped me and I'm fat now. And because that's just not Thor to me. Thor would be wanting to revel at the halls of Valhalla, fuck Thanos. So, oh, well, we didn't stop the snap. Oh, well, life goes on. There's still a party in, there's still a party in Asgard. And, I'm going to go level some people, level some dudes with my hammer and shit. That's a Thor I like. And I like him talking like Shakespearean shit. You'll see it here when he comes to the rescue of the Avengers once more. Iron Man thinks all the Avengers are dead. And Iron Man was away. Iron Man wasn't in. I'm 55. Well, you're older than me then. The Shakespeare style was always too much for me in the solo comics. Okay. Well, you're a year older than me then. My apologies. I'm assuming. See, that's what I get for assuming. But I respect your point. You don't have to. Damn, somebody older than me? No, I'm just kidding. I'm 50. I'm 54. I was never a big fan of the Thor solo comic book until Walt Simonson. We were talking about it earlier, but I still tried to read it. But yeah, Thor was like a pass for me monthly. That's a book I just didn't. But I didn't get Iron Man all the time monthly either. I said I'll just get Iron Man in my Avengers, and they're explaining Iron Man here was away on a. Current issues of Iron Man. What they're doing, my personal problems. They're talking about the Demon in the Bottle saga, and he's fighting the Hammer, Justin Hammer Corp, where he's getting Corporation is what I'm trying to say, and where he hired all those villains to get him all to try to take down Tony Stark. What were all those Spy Master and I don't go. Man Killer and all those villains that he was fighting during the time. Blizzard, Water Wizard, all those villains. Those are some good issues. That's David Michelinie. I think that's, and then Bob Layton, and that's John Romita Jr., some of John Romita Jr.'s first Marvel work as well. But that was all going on around this time where he was doing the Demon in the Bottle shit. I think that's what they're referring to. In second thought, that is not what they're referring to then, because all that came a year later than this. All that came in 1978, 79. So I'm not sure what personal problems they're referring to here. Probably some problem with a dame or losing his company or something. But it says see current issues of Iron Man. Yeah, the Demon in the Bottle stuff happened after all this. Yeah. I've got my years mixed up here. So I was wrong. Thor in the 2-in-1s and team-ups and Avengers event comics were always cool. He's a great comic character as well. Yeah, I love him. Some of my favorite Marvel team-up issues that I've gone over is him, Spider-Man, Thor, where they fought the living monolith. And then, the Marvel 2-in-1s with the Thing with Thor. Yeah, those are good too. Those are awesome. Need to go over some of those. Some of those are George Perez drawing stuff. But yeah, they're all lecturing Iron Man. As you can see, Wonder Man without a shirt here. John Byrne doing shirtless. He destroyed George Perez's new creation. Yes, Perez. Yeah, and John Byrne did the Marvel team-ups with Thor and Spider-Man, some of those issues. Dude, Marvel 2-in-1's got some awesome shit. The Pegasus Project with Stingray and all that. I need to go over those sometime. Those are fucking awesome. I remember those. That's George Perez. Who wrote those? Oh, geez. I wanted to say David Michelinie was the writer of some of those on Marvel 2-in-1. That whole with Quasar and all that, the Project Pegasus, that's an awesome storyline. Yeah, they're all lecturing Iron Man here. Either be here for us or step down as leader. They still don't know he's Tony Stark. They're like, Wanda, only a minute. Lead us, Iron Man, or step down. And then eventually Captain America takes over. So the Nefaria comes back. He goes, I'm seeking Thor. Bye. I have no interest in you guys, but I'm seeking Thor. If he were around, he'd come after seeking you, boo-boo. That's what Beast says. So Iron Man's like, you guys stay back. Let me take him on. He says, what, we're supposed to watch him fight? Who does he think he is? He's our leader, and now it's time to challenge his rule. Trust me, Beast. Now is not the time to challenge his rule, for in my own land I am king. So Iron Man thinks he can take down Nefaria real quick and give the others a break. The thing is my favorite. Almost all the 2-in-1s. Project Quasar, well done for years. Yeah, Marvel 2-in-1. Love it. Definitely going to cover those sometime. Yeah, he jumps on a thing in Spider-Man Team Up 2-in-1. Part story was epic. Refresh my memory. In Team Up and 2-in-1, you have to refresh my memory on the Marvel 2-in-1, what that story was. Was that the one where they fought Basilisk? Was that the one where, was that the thing, was that Marvel Team Up Spider-Man and Thing versus the Basilisk? Yes. See, I know a little what I'm talking about. Yeah. Oh, I'm out of water. Basilisk, yeah. I always thought that was an interesting looking character. He had kind of like that mind. He had that beam that came out like man, it's been a long time since I've read that. I used to have those as well. Yep. Was that the Thing? And I'm not sure what the other issue, because that was a 2-parter, and I don't know what the other character was that was in there for the team up. But I know it was mythological monster, yeah. But I think he had some sort of like hypnotizing, kind of like Sauron a little bit. But he could also blast you with that. Yeah, it was kind of like a lizard-looking dude. But he stood upright, yeah. And also 2-in-1, okay. So Nefaria said, look at Black Panther. Strike hard, Beast. And then he's using his speed here. Smacks Wanda, smacks Yellow Jacket, smacks Captain America. Iron Man slams him down. You see a lot of Pablo Marcus in this. In this art. You see some panels, you see more and more Pablo Marcus than John Byrne. So you can tell he has tasked Pablo Marcus to, some of these pencils might have been rough right there. This right here is more Pablo Marcus than John Byrne. Spidey and the Thing's comic, and then the Thing is in Spidey's comic, I think. Yep. I remember some of those. I can't believe I was right about that, though. I mean, I vaguely remember them. I've read them all. I think I've read every Marvel. At one time, I've read every Marvel Team Up. I've read every Marvel 2-in-1. Those are books I love. This is early Byrne. I can't tell you quite settled on the style yet. Yeah, no, you're right about that. Byrne, plus, you got to remember, Byrne was he was just coming off doing Iron Fist. So he had done Iron Fist. He didn't have a consistent embellisher on Iron Fist. He had Dan Green. He had Dave Hunt. I can't remember who else he had. I don't know if Joel Rubenstein did any of his embellishment, but you can tell the difference. Like the Byrne Iron Fist was a lot more polished. it looked to me, but he hadn't, like, you can tell when he's a little, you can tell when he's a little rushed. You can tell when things are rushed and he lets the embellisher do a little bit more on the page. It'd be nice to have, like, to look at the original art. Rob Liefeld recently in a podcast was talking about original art of John Byrne, and he owns some of it. And he said this original art from this Count Nefaria story is very hard to come by. He said, and this goes for more, actually, the original art here goes for more money than a lot of the Byrne stuff, and it goes for a pretty penny, like the original art. So, it would be interesting to see, like, how rough some of the panels are. You know what I mean? Yeah, he hit his style on X-Men because he had Terry Austin. Even John Byrne has said, John Byrne on Fantastic Four run was awesome. Yeah, that wasn't Terry Austin either as his inker. But John Byrne has said, if you're not a John Byrne fan, you may be a John Byrne, Terry Austin fan more than just a John Byrne fan. I love John Byrne regardless, but you can see the hand of the embellisher in a lot of the stuff. Like, the different embellisher makes a difference. Like, his art looks a lot different when Klaus Janson finishes. I love Klaus Janson, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't look like, it looks like a hybrid of Frank Miller, John Byrne, because Klaus Janson's hand is in a lot of Frank Miller, like on the Daredevil. Like, you can see it. I love this part here. They're fighting, and he slams Wonder Man into Captain America. He's like, it's over, finally. If the likes of these were much trouble, perhaps I'd be wise to set a trap for Thor. So he's still got his eyes on Thor here. Well, he got his wish. Yeah, the Byrne, I love the issue with Terrax the Tamer. Comes down, what is that? Fantastic Four 248, 249, and 250. Those are, oh man, the battles they have with Terrax the Tamer, one of Galactus's heralds, is fucking awesome, dude. I love Terrax. I love that character. Day of the Godslayer. He's like, oh my God, thou hast dared much, villain, and verily thine hour of judgment hath come. Yeah, this was hard. This was hard to read when I'm like a 9-year-old kid. This is why I would kind of look through the Thor books and kind of skim through them, like the Thor. I had to read this, and I liked it in the context of like the Avengers group. But reading this kind of thing, like the entire issue as a kid, you're kind of, okay. And he's like, Thor, you wanted Thor, you got him. I love reading this shit. The schizoid superhero can be a deadly ploy. I'm not going to read through that. First thing I want to do is thank you for a great story in Avengers 161. It's going to be interesting to see how you tie the story and the one in Marvel team up together. I went through those. That was the one where Thor and Spider-Man were fighting the living Pharaoh and that turned into the living monolith. Those are some epic issues. But that's the one they're talking about. They kind of tie that in. I got these dumb Twitter notifications blocking my chat on YouTube. Get away. We are so lucky we collected comics when they were good. Oh, dude. I wake up every day. Oh, look at this shit. On sale every other month. Doesn't that blow your mind? Oh, you can't see it. I've got it cut off. God damn it. Let me move this up just a little bit. There you go. X-Men, all new and all great, on sale every other month. The X-Men haven't, this is the new X-Men, obviously. Little John Byrne there. The X-Men still are bi-monthly. They're still, appreciate your live streams. Every other month. Yeah, it's bi-monthly, Super Patriot. They were about ready to cancel it. And then Claremont and Byrne made it the number one comic book. Just 3 years later, it's the talk of comic books. But it's cool to see these ads pre It's like Time Machine, man. I love seeing the ads appreciate your lives. Yeah, I need to do the comic book stuff a little more. I just, I just there's some days I just don't, I just want to I got other shit to do, but, I'm lazy as fuck after work, I remember late 80s, early 90s, they were going bi-weekly. Yeah. You couldn't, yeah, no, you're 100% right. It went from X-Men on the chopping block to, and there's a real interesting story that I'm not going to go through now because it'd take me an hour of how all that came about. And people can look it up, but I know it from like comic book magazines and stuff, interviews and stuff with Dave Cockrum and Lynn Wein about how some of these characters came about. Some of these were originally supposed to be DC characters. People don't know that. Storm and Nightcrawler were originally going to be DC characters, but they were different. He was, I don't know if it was named Nightcrawler, I can't remember, but Storm was going to be a character called Black Cat, and they merged a character called Tempest. They had a black male character that was going to be called Tempest that could control the weather, or Typhoon or Tempest, I can't remember. And then they merged the Black Cat character, not the Black Cat from the Spider-Man. This is 5 years before all that. They merged those two into Storm. When Dave Cockrum came over from DC to Marvel, he brought those characters with him. He was going to put he was doing Legion of Superheroes. And they wouldn't give him his artwork back, and he got pissed off. He said, I'm out of here. I quit. Yeah. Carmine Infantino was the editor at DC and said, we don't give people's artwork back. And that was an ongoing problem with comic book. And Dave Cockrum was like, yeah, he just wanted one page. He wanted one page of Legion of Superheroes in like 1973, 74. And Dave Cockrum had a portfolio of characters that he was going to put, and they were going to call them the Outsiders. He was going to call them the Outsiders, and they were going to be a spinoff of the Legion of Superheroes. Now, I might be getting a little of this jumbled. Don't quote me verbatim. I could be mistaken about a few things, but the basic premise was Dave Cockrum came over and said, okay, screw you guys. Put me on the X-Men, and I've got some ideas. He created Colossus. And but yeah, Nightcrawler was originally going to be a character that was going to be a spinoff of the Legion of Superheroes. Yep. That's a true story. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Now, I love this cover. I remember Nefarious Supreme. I remember seeing this as a kid when I couldn't wait for this next issue. I couldn't wait for my mom. Mom, are you going to the grocery today? Mom, shut up. Mom, are you going to the grocery today? Now, I know exactly who did this cover because they've got initials. They've got GP and EC. Does anybody know who the EC is? GP, of course, is George Perez. I really enjoyed New Mutants. Before I start that, EC is Ernie Chan, who he went on to do some artwork for Power Man and Iron Fist a couple years after this when they merged the two together. He took I believe Ernie Chan took over in like 1981 or 80, maybe, in Power Man and Iron Fist. Yep. You remember that comic run of Ernie Chan? Power Man, yeah. But I guess he was you can see his hand in it too, with, like the face here. You can see, that's just as much Ernie Chan as it is, that's just as much Ernie Chan as it is Perez. EC, I'm assuming EC is Ernie Chan. I mean, you can tell if I would bring up, oh, you were right, Ernie Chan. Okay, yeah, there's a delay in the stream, so yeah, yep. Yeah, he did some. I'm not super familiar with Ernie Chan, but I am familiar with that run on Power Man and Iron Fist that he had. It's pretty good. I like him. I tried to get back to what you said. I enjoyed New Mutants as well. As a high schooler at the time, it felt relatable. Yeah, I was excited about the New Mutants comic book, but the first couple issues, I was kind of let down a little bit. Bob McLeod was of course, it was Chris Claremont. I worked with him at Sega, the sweetest guy you'll ever meet, and so talented. Oh, you worked with Ernie Chan at Sega? Was he doing artwork? Oh, you're going to have to fill me in on that. You're shitting me. Oh, man. Tell him I'm a big fan of his run on Power Man Iron Fist. I don't know I forget how many issues he did, but I know he did some Power Man Iron Fist. Oh, man. That's cool. Yeah, I'm assuming that's EC, Ernie Chan. Even Youth Under God. Yep. Shooter story, Burnin Marcos art. Now, the art in this comic book looks like it's got more. Yes, I make video games. He was our concept artist. Oh, you're shitting me. Oh, man, that's awesome, dude. Ernie Chan was the concept artist. Oh, fuck, man. Now I'm going to have to look at an Ernie Chan Power Man issue. Power Man Iron Fist issue. I can't remember the years that he did, but I know he had a short little run. Oh, that's cool as hell, man. But in this art, maybe it's my imagination, but I see more Pablo Marcos. I see much more. Yeah, it says Burnin Marcos art. I see a lot more Pablo Marcos hand in this. Unfortunately, he died in cancer in 2013. Oh, I did not know that. That I did not know. That's sad. Yeah, I liked him. He brought a certain kind of style to Power Man Iron Fist. Power Man and Iron Fist, after they had the merging in 78 of the two characters, and then, they teased it with had Claremont and Byrne doing that story arc, which I've covered before on here. Then they just couldn't keep an artist. They had Mark Bright. Now they had another guy that was a lot like John Byrne later, Kerry Gamble. If you're familiar with any writing art from Kerry Gamble, he was good. He was kind of refreshing. He wasn't quite on Byrne's level, but he's got a little bit of Byrne influence in him. I enjoyed Kerry Gamble's art run on, and Ernie did Conan. See, now I'm not familiar with those. I've seen some covers, but I've never read. I don't think I've ever read a Conan. Ernie Chan read Conan. Conan wasn't really. Every once in a while, I'd flip through one, but since it wasn't part of the extended Marvel universe at the time, I was really big into that connected universe. Conan really wasn't. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh yeah, look cool. But he wasn't a superhero. He didn't have an outfit or a superpower, and it wasn't my thing. I had a friend that lived across the street and down 3 houses. His older brother was a Conan nut when I was growing up. He had all of them, and we would try to sneak in there and look at them every once in a while. But because you saw scantily dressed women, and that was our porn, you know what I mean? Like, oh, and, John Buscema stuff, and Red Sonja, and, but as far as I was superhero guy, there wasn't any comic books that I was following that wasn't like, I liked the superhero teams. I was Avengers, later X-Men. I like the Champions. Big Spider-Man as well. But I like the big epic team battles. That was my thing when I was a kid. I appreciate more of that stuff now, but I did not know Ernie Chan did a run on Conan. I really did not. Dimension Raiders. There was a robot, a superhero, a vampire hunter, and a talking ape detective, and a barbarian. His barbarian looked exactly like Conan. Was so. Oh, that'd been interesting. Now I like that premise: a robot, a superhero, a vampire hunter, talking ape detective. I kind of like that kind of stuff. A game concept I had was called Dimension Raiders, but it never came to fruition, huh? Ah, damn, man. That would have been cool. That would have been cool as hell. But like I was saying, you can see, I mean, you still see John Byrne here, but you see a lot of Pablo Marcus as well. The head is a little, it's a little strange here, but that just doesn't look all John Byrne to me right here. For I am Thor, and he's whooping Nefaria. Nefaria's like, wait a second, hold on, I'm not quite. He's like, please stay away. I'm not. He's like, little wonder that you were able to best my fellow Avengers, for they are mortals. Never was greenlit. That sucks. That would have been interesting. Even though I never had a Sega Saturn or Sega Genesis or anything. I did have a Sega Dreamcast. I did buy a Dreamcast when it came out. I take that back. That was my only Sega. And when the new Xbox came out, my Sega didn't. I played my Sega about a year and a half, and then the new Xbox came out, and I got that because Halo, you know. But yeah, he's whooping Nefaria here. Nefaria's like, he hurt me, but he's hit me twice, and I'm still alive. Why should I fear him? Now this part's cool. He shoots his beams here and spinning Mjolnir, and then I will show you power, Nefaria. Behold. See, I like this kind of Thor. First thee and thy ilk dream of being kings, and then of being gods, claiming these honors by right of thy power. Bah, I will show thee power, Nefaria. Behold. He's like, that glow, what is it? The portal. He's like, that fucker just created a portal. It's sucking me in. His powers are mind staggering. I never dreamed. So he just drops a building on him. That ought to take care of him. I've had my fill of fighting these guys today. First, I better destroy the Avengers. Yeah, I mean, the other Avengers didn't take too kindly of it all the time. They were like, we want Thor there all the time. You know, either be there or, you know. And I think the Scarlet Witch lectures him later on it, which was kind of like, I was like, and he kind of took it too. You know, it's like, I was almost wanting him to go, watch it, woman, I'll backhand you. But anyway, he thinks he's killed Thor, and Thor's back up because I have not battled a foe thy metal since I last strove against the Destroyer. Of course, that's the Destroyer. This is Thor 265, 266. I remember reading those issues. I remember eventually reading those two issues only because they referenced them in this comic book. So any kind of comic book that was referenced in like the Avengers or the Spider-Man, I would always have to go and dig it up and try to read it somewhere, try to see if I could find it. You know, if it was on the spinner rack or later, you know, a couple years down the road in a back issue bin or anything. I always made notes of the ones that I hadn't read yet. But that's the same Destroyer, Asgardian Destroyer from the MCU reference. I like how he catches Thor. He goes, Odds blood. And I remember thinking Odds blood when I was a kid. I was like, doesn't he mean Odin's blood? And somebody had written in on the a couple months later, somebody had written in going, you guys screwed up because it's Odin's blood. But I guess they gave some sort of reason why Jim Shooter gave a reason why it's Odds blood instead of Odin, because sometimes they would refer to Odin as Odds. If I'm pronouncing that right. They thought it was a typo. You guys had a typo. I remember the guy writing in, like questioning, thinking that they've You know, they've got you. They had a gotcha moment for the. I don't know why I remember stupid shit like that, but I remember that. He goes, I don't believe it. When I woke up, it's time to see you running out on us last issue. He goes, I do my fighting best in the laboratory here. I have no chance against Nefaria, but I do have a chance to reviving somebody that has a chance against him, the Vision. He goes, he could revive him immediately or destroy him because they've got him still in this restoration tank here. But the radiation Ultron zapped the Vision was totally unknown to us, and it posed quite a aha. Hot dog, YJ, it worked. I love this. Hey, Viz, you okay? Vision, we need your help desperately. Count Nefaria has become desperate need should preclude excess speech. Where is Nefaria? I love it. Oh, my stars. He's more robotic than I've ever seen him. What if he isn't all there? He's outside? Careful, Viz. He's dangerous. As am I. I am fully functional. I shall spare no effort. I love it. Yeah, I always love that. I always loved that when I was a kid, that this whole entire page. I was like, oh, man, this is so cool. That's how you write comic books, not this garbage today. Oh, but Jim Shooter got a bad... Now, in all fairness... Before I read your entire statement, Jim Shooter did go start jumping the shark a little bit but he was under pressure to sell, and he got a little carried away. But Jim Shooter, to me, is the greatest editor-in-chief of all time at Marvel. I mean, if you just look at the history of Marvel Comics. And I'm not talking about overall sales. I'm talking about someone that was a visionary that changed. Jim Shooter's biggest thing is he saw talent. He gave guys, I mean, look what he did. He was responsible basically for putting John Byrne and Claremont on the Avengers. On the X-Men. This all happened under Jim Shooter. John Byrne didn't want to do the X-Men. John Byrne wanted to stay on Marvel Team Up, and he wanted to bring Terry Austin to Marvel Team Up, which I would have liked to have seen that as well. To be honest with you. John Byrne didn't think that he was a fit for the X-Men. He thought that the fans would rebel because the fans really liked Dave Cockrum. He's like, I didn't want to get in there. And then, of course, he was wrong. The fans instantly gravitated to, I mean, that was like an upgrade. You know, but he didn't see it as that. I just don't think he wanted to do that team book like that. But he put Byrne and Claremont on the X-Men. He put in he helped put in that royalty system a little bit. Now, it wasn't perfect. He did do more to incentivize creative ability. You know, of people, spark the creative juices. He unleashed Frank Miller. And you see what happened with Frank Miller. Yeah, Stan Lee. Yeah, but Stan Lee was building it from the ground up. Comic book sales were down. You got to remember, 1976, 1977, the country wasn't in the best shape. You got to look at the full context. Comic book sales were down. It was not cool to be reading comic books. That's what these younger people don't understand. They just take it for granted that all this stuff just is all out here in the ether and it's everywhere and it was beloved and it's accepted as part of mainstream culture. This shit was underground stuff. I started talking about this to my friends at school, and there might be one guy who was like, oh, that's cool. But the other kids, they pick on you or tease you over this shit. You know, I wore a Captain America shirt to school, and I got fucking heckled. Oh, comic books. You know, comic books were seen as fucking lowbrow. This shit, This is a whole different thing. So comic books, but that's why I loved them, because I felt like I was in a little club. You know what I mean? Like when I was a Marvel comic, and I would see the other people write in. I'd see people write in that were as passionate, and these are older people. I was like, wait a second, these are college students and stuff. And then I grew up on a college campus, and I started talking about this stuff to like older college kids, and they're like, how do you know all this stuff, kid? And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, I love this shit. And they thought that they had some inclusive, little secret. It was like a speakeasy or something. And that's how comic books were. You didn't go out and see all this merchandising shit. This is 1977, you know. But Star Wars saved comic books, man. 100%. Yeah, times were tough. I remember the recession. I didn't like to talk to people about comics. I would read comics inside my school books on the bus. Yeah, I did the same thing. We went on a class trip, and I had a issue of Iron Man where he battled the blizzard, and the blizzard made a little slit in his armor, and it was starting to freeze him. That was George Tuska's art. I remember. I can't remember who wrote it. I think Roy Thomas or something. It doesn't matter. But it was a earlier 70s back issue I'd gotten my hands on, and I was reading it all the way to a school trip. We had like a 2-hour school trip on the bus, and I read it on the bus. And kids were and I was covering up with like a magazine. You know what I mean? Because, I didn't, the kids. And then later on, I was like, fuck it. I don't care if these kids know. And when Star Wars hit, it became a lot more popular, like that kind of stuff. In where I lived, like it was like, because everyone liked Star Wars. And then all of a sudden, on the playground, everybody wanted to do Star Wars stuff. And then comic books, Star Wars were hand in hand, comic book characters. And then the Spider-Man television show came out, and then the Hulk. And then the kids, I remember in 5th grade, they were coming to me asking, who's this Hulk guy? They were like, did you watch that Spider-Man show? What's that all about? And all of a sudden they wanted to know this shit. So I was like, and they knew I liked the stuff, and nobody else really did in my elementary school classes. So, so people, I don't even know what my fucking original point was, but Star Wars fucking saved them, man. I'm serious. People are like, oh yeah, right. No, that Star Wars comic book blew the fuck up. I mean, that thing, you saw that thing everywhere. You go into a JCPenney, Star Wars, they'd have that Star Wars comic book like on a fucking display thing. And I was like, you never saw that? Yeah, Star Wars fucking blew it up. And they were going to pass on Star Wars. And that Star Wars comic book sold millions. Easily the best-selling comic book back then. It sold like 1 million, 800,000, whatever, million. That was big sell. That was a big sell for a comic book back then. And you got to remember, people didn't have any money. Like you had Jimmy Carter in the fucking, things were tough. People just didn't have money to spend on comic books back then. It's like, there's only 30 cents. That 30 cents is a big deal. In 1977, I remember begging my mom to buy me. Hey, Mom, can you buy me this 30-cent comic? And my mom and dad weren't poor, they were middle class. But I said I want this one and this one and this one, and she's like, I will buy you 2 comic books. And that 60 cents, those 2 comic books had to do me for the next couple weeks until my mom went back to the grocery, No girlfriend until I was in my 20s. I had girlfriends in high school, but they played second. I started I was in comic books and all that stuff when I was in high school. But I played sports too. It's like I wasn't no girlfriend. Yeah, I had girlfriends in high school. Yeah, overrated. When I was a freshman in college, my girlfriend was still a senior in high school. Yeah, man. Oh boy. But that's when I started. The comic books it wasn't because I was getting older. I saw the quality going down. I mean, I just was not. I saw more of the big business getting into it, and I saw them jumping the shark on a lot of shit. And by the time 1989 rolled around, I was about ready to tap out. I was like, yeah, they're ruining this shit. A lot of the Marvel. And I had started doing a little bit of DC. Like, I started getting Batman and the Outsiders a little bit, and then they ended up canceling Batman on it. Yeah. Oh, I remember. Yeah. Oh, I vividly remember watching the election of Jimmy Carter on television with my parents, because my parents weren't like overly political, but they were pretty. They kept up on shit. Like, they always watched. My dad made me sit down and watch the news with Walter Cronkite. My mom had a copy of Atlas Shrugged up on her, in the bookcase, in the book mantle in the living room, and she talked about it. And my parents like to talk about that kind of thing. And I remember vividly the election night Jimmy Carter won, because my friend in elementary school's dad collected beer cans. He collected old, and he had Billy Beer can in his garage. He had collected like old different styles. He had like hundreds of different styles of beer cans. So, but yeah, I remember my dad going, yeah, they just elected a peanut farmer. Oh, we're in trouble. And I don't want to polarize anybody with politics or anything, but yeah, I vividly remember watching the Ronald Reagan fucking landslide election in 84. It wasn't a landslide in 80, but I remember Ronald Reagan getting elected. But I remember my dad shaking his head when Jimmy Carter got elected. Oh, boy. It's like, here we go. It's like, he might be a nice man, but I remember my dad going, hey, he's no leader. I vividly remember my dad saying that stuff. And I'm like 7 years old. And I was like, oh, boy, there goes my comic books. But, I mean, that's right when I was starting to get into comic books. But I remember my mom would worry about, my dad wasn't like that, but my mom is like a worry. Oh my God. Ugh. Just worry about everything. And I guess rightfully so on stuff, but my mom and dad grew up really poor, like on farms, like super poor, but they didn't consider themselves, poor. They barely had running water. They had to pump their own water and shit. But, I didn't grow up poor. My mom and dad were great providers, so I had the benefit. That's probably why I turned out to be the loser I am. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, let's get back to comic books. Enough of my sob story here. It's over. So he smokes Thor. Thor drops his hammer. He's going to pick up Thor's hammer. Don't get me started. The Vision springs up out of the ground, and he's trying to do his little disruption trick. He goes, I've heard about it's over, Nefaria. It would seem, therefore, you cannot partially solidify within me. I've heard it's most unpleasant, but he can't do it because he's made like a pure energy. However, apparently my transformed body is too charged with super energy. So the same thing should have happened when he fought Wonder Man earlier, but, what are you going to do? Maybe it's a different kind of, Now comic books are short, little dialogue, and poorly done. Yeah. The bonus is we couldn't buy a lot of comics. They were usually long reads, plenty of dialogue and pages, and worthy of rereads. Oh, 100%. I used to, when I would go to the grocery and my mom would be mad at me, or I'd been a brat, which is about 95.8% of the time when I was a brat. She's like, I'm not buying you anything. And I was like, but Mom, so I'd have to be good for a week, act like I'm good. But I'd follow her to the grocery, and this is back, it wasn't a really big town or anything. And she would go, she's like, nope, you're staying with me right here. And I was like, Mom, I have to go to the comic book rack. And I'd throw a fit. I'd start crying and throwing a fit. That was a couple weeks ago. But no, I was like 8 years old. So she's like, okay, you're going to be right here by these comic books. And there was usually it was in the drugstore part of the grocery store. It was a Ross's. And there was always some woman at the counter, and she's like, it's fine. And I'll watch him, while he's there. And it wasn't super crowded. And I just sit there and turn that damn, read through, and I'd read as many as I can because I knew I only had about 25, 30 minutes before my mom came back to pick me up, And then I'm like, Mom, yeah, Count Bratula, yeah, bad. I'm like, Mom, please, I'll take the garbage out all week. I never did. I'll pick up my room. You got to get me this. And she'd go, okay, one comic book. That's how a lot of the grocery store trips went. But that's how I got my comic books. I had to manipulate my mom. But yeah, I mean, once again, I forget what my point was. Anyway, yeah, so he smokes Vision. He hits Vision while he's in his ethereal form here, his intangible form. He's not totally intangible, but that's like the first time he's ever been hit while in that form. Never before have I been struck while ethereal. A few times I had such naked power. And I love this scene where he's like halfway falling through the pavement and shit. It'll be a breeze to slip into Avengers Mansion through one of the holes Nefaria knocked in it and get all the pictures I need. He's trying to get intel on the Avengers so they can put the government clamps on him. Old Henry Gyrich. But this wouldn't happen till that storyline wouldn't happen till a little bit down the road. So the Wasp isn't dead. I don't really like this Wasp costume. I prefer a white and blue one or a purple one better. I even kind of like a red and blue one better. Just relax. There'll be no more fighting. He goes, don't baby me, Jarvis. Only Hank gets away with treating me like a helpless woman. The Avengers are fighting. They'll have to deal the wonderful Wasp in. But Miss Pym, why, that's Count Nefaria down there, and somehow he's become a super powerhouse. Stay back, Thunder God. I'm warning you. He's picking a whole bus up here. So then some mysterious guy is coming in a chauffeur and through the police barricade. And they shoot his ass. They shoot his tires out and he wrecks. But it's the German scientist that Nefaria thought he killed. He's like, I can't have you duplicating that and making another super being, so I'm going to kill you. Nefaria must find Nefaria, and his arms all contorted. So he's battling Thor here, and he says, Nefaria, it is I. He goes, you can't keep this up much longer, Thor, but I never tire. He goes, what? Starting to fade. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks for chatting. Yeah, I mean, I'll sit here and talk to myself if I have to. I do it all the time. I don't care. Somebody eventually will watch it, maybe a couple people. No, I appreciate you hanging out, man. I was just in the mood to look at some old comic books today. He's like, what? Sturdy, Professor Sturdy. Yeah, I'll see you, man. Yeah, thanks for some of the info, especially on that Ernie Chan. That was cool. Professor Sturdy and his staff are prepared at last to increase your powers, gentlemen. But it's all a joke. Not a joke, but it's all a plot. They're really amplifying Nefaria. You see the whole backstory, and then when it's over, how naive you are, Sturdy. Surely you realize I cannot let you live now and perhaps create another like you. No, wait, listen to me. He's like, you are very careless, Nefaria. I am not quite dead, and I am not the naive fool you imagine. You gave me no chance to explain. I did not give you such power without a means to control you. Without a means to control you. He's German. Have you not noticed yet, Nefaria, you're aging at an incredible rate? I love this as a kid. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. What a shocking twist. You're aging at an incredible rate. A month for every 10 minutes, a year for every 2 hours. You will be dead in 2 days. It's true, my face is older. Only I know how to control your aging process, Nefaria. Only I could have saved you. So Thor is like, then surrender to us, Nefaria. Perhaps the Avengers can save thy life. For among us are numbered several men of great scientific learning. No, leave me alone. And then he goes nuts and he starts destroying the city here. In his helpless anger, he seeks to destroy everything near. How human to rage senselessly in the face of death. He must be stopped. Well, weren't you just raging the other day against Wonder Man over jealousy? Because you thought old Wendy was making the moves on Scarlet Witch. That was a little different. And Cap is in bad shape. Like Cap's almost dead. Wanda, wake up. They need us. And worse than you are, and by the way, your husband is also revived, out fighting Nefaria with Thor. Looks like Cap is the worst off, but I think he'll be okay. Yeah, he got hit with a Wonder Man missile. And Captain America, besides Black Panther, is basically the most, well, besides Wasp and Yellow Jacket, like physically wise, they have powers, but Captain America is the most normal of the, like, human-like of the bunch. What's happening out there? I'm not sure, Wonder Man. It looks like Nefaria has gone berserk. The Vision is pursuing him. We've got to help him. Let's go. Cap, no, rest. And Cap's like, wait, I've got to try. And Captain America's still shaky. He can barely stand up. This is a great scene here. This is some awesome shit. Guess you're right. I'd only hinder you. I'm still dizzy. But Wonder Man, you'll need defense against his laser beams. Here, take my shield. And Wonder Man's like, me? It's an honor it's an honor I don't feel I deserve. I don't know what to say, Cap. I love that picture there of Wonder Man putting the shield on. That's just awesome. As you can see, Captain America just slumps over. He's out of it. Let's go. Yeah, he's like, I can't take this honor of taking your shield. And Nefaria's going nutty. He's like jumping up and burning buildings down with his laser beams. Because he thinks he's dead. He's like, I'm going to do as much damage as I can before I die. So the Vision knocks him off the building. And Wonder Man comes up. This time it's going to be a lot harder for you to hurt me. Curse that wretched shield. And then the Wasp comes out and zaps him. And then Iron Man comes back and joins. And then Nefaria is starting to see he's in a little bit of trouble. Damn, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I did not realize it was that damn late. Oh, shit. Iron Man, look out. Shit, man. Damn, where's the time go? I get lost in comic books. So anyway, they're ganging up on him, and then Scarlet Witch is like, I love this, very dramatic, Thor, but I for one, am sick of your last-minute appearances and your overblown godhood. And if there's one among us Nefaria should beware, it is I. Scarlet Witch gestures, abandoning sorceress finesse for the moment to wreak the full fury of her natural hex power on her foe. Probabilities run amok, and by random chance, a mind-numbing burst of pain floods Nefaria's body. But Thor isn't going to be put to the side. I do not deny thy deadly skill, woman. Deny thou not the matchless might that is Thor's alone. I love their back and forth. They're back and forth while they're whooping Nefaria's ass. He is down and the building collapsed on him. He's still kicking. I'll get you all before I die. Gonna kill you. Well, the Vision's like, okay, we're gonna end this. This is high enough. The time is right. Crease his mass to the ultimate. Render my body as hard as the purest diamond and fall. Something plummeting from the sky toward Nefaria. Meteor. No, the Vision. and it registered on the Richter scale in Vermont. That would have done more damage than Nefaria. Did you feel that? They're thinking Vision is destroyed. The Nefaria is down. He fell on Nefaria like a missile. So Nefaria is defeated. But then there's some inner problems with the team. Thunder God or not, I'd like to know where you get off honoring us with your presence. He's being sarcastic. Only when you feel we're in deep enough would that I could explain. I could ask the same for your question, Shellhead. This team has hit bottom while you have been our leader, our absent leader. In case you hadn't noticed, it was the Vision solo effort that finally beat Nefaria. And then Yellow Jacket explains that he heard the last words of Sturdy, where it was that aging process was just a temporary side effect. His super energy cells would have extended his lifespan indefinitely. In fact, he was immortal. And then you see this strange old man with a picture of Wanda and Pietro, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and then he's got two like little marionette dolls right here. George Perez returns the Guardians of the Galaxy's guest star. That's a good issue, but I'm not going to cover it. I didn't know it was that late. The moment on oblique bark. What is that? Barkation, block, and Valvidos. A weary old man somewhere. A weary old man pauses and looks once again at the pictures he carried with him so many lonely years. So I was always confused by what this was. This is a plot thread that doesn't really get resolved for like another year almost in real time. This is just kind of as a long delayed reunion with his beloved children. And I'm like, children? And he's got pictures of these two. So that starts the whole plot thread of Chthon, Mordred the Mystic, when that's more John Byrne. That's when they had the Falcon join the group. The Falcon ends up joining the Avengers and everything. Anyway, that's all I can talk about comic books. That was fun. For me. Oh, they're talking about the Bride of Ultron. Bride of Ultron was without the doubt the best of the Ultron stories so far. Dear Jim, George, and Pablo, I rather unfortunately have never considered Avengers to be my favorite sort of comic magazine. I prefer stability in a book, like Fantastic Four. But after reading Avengers 160 to 162, I must say I am hooked, not only by the art of George Perez, which I dig in the FF. True, those are good. Yep. Next issue, Jim, George, and Pablo are starting a storyline that people are going to be talking about for years to come. Oh, yes. But not covered in the MCU. They're starting a storyline called the Korvac Saga, which is one of the most legendary Avengers storylines there is. People are going to talk about years to come. How about decades to come? And it does involve the Guardians of the Galaxy as well. The old Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll probably leave off right there, and then maybe tomorrow I'll go over the Korvac Saga. Pretty epic. And then that goes into the Scarlet Witch being possessed by Chthon kind of. They have some side issues too. The one with John, the Absorbing Man, the little thing with the Avengers battle the Absorbing Man, and then they also fight the Grey Gargoyle. They have there's like two issues where they fight the Grey Gargoyle. That's John Byrne as well, and I think Klaus Janson is the inker on those issues as well. So, but anyway, that'll do it for that. Yeah, so I'm going to get out of here. I have yapped enough.